Please be seated. Good afternoon, colleagues. Can I remind members to put their mobile phones onto silent, please? The first item on the council summons is to receive apologies for absence. Are we all here? Yes. There's no apologies for absence because apparently every councillor is here. So there's no apologies to be received or noted, and I also note that Councillor Hayes has informed me that she may need to leave the meeting early. Item 2 on the agenda is members' declarations of interest. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves and their interest clearly and complete the appropriate form before the end of the meeting. Firstly, are there any disposable pecuniary interest to be declared? Okay, thank you. Are there any other interests to be declared? Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is to receive and confirm the minutes of the November council meeting. Are these minutes moved?
Move the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Are these minutes seconded? All in favour, please show. Sorry, could you do that again, please? All in favour, please show. Thank you. That is carried. Agenda 4 is to deal with such announcements as I may decide to lay before council. Since my last update to you, my mayoral diary has been full and varied with many fantastic events and occasions, such as brass band concerts, carol services, charity and celebrity events, up to and including the festive period. More recently, I have attended More recently, I've attended events to support my chosen charity, other charities in the district, citizenship ceremonies, and several school visits, and many pantomimes. Go on, Matthew. Oh, yes, I have. It was a pleasure to welcome Dr. Canon Eric Peters to the Diocese of Wakefield over the weekend and observe school children's initiatives and inspiration as they participated in the Business Builders Challenge, raising funds for the Prince of Wales Hospice in Pontefract. And I was delighted to be asked to bury a time capsule at Pontefract Castle, which will be reopened in 100 years' time in 2125, and I do hope to be there. My forthcoming charity events are a curry night at the Cinnamon Lounge in Horbury Bridge on the 21st of February, and an afternoon with local author Millie Johnson on the 11th of March in the Kingswood Suite. There's many other events which will be publicised over the next few weeks, and if anybody would like to attend, tickets are available from the Mayor's office or myself or my ward colleagues. Moving on to agenda item 5. Members will see that there are 2 deputations before council today. 2 members of a deputation may address the council for a maximum of 5 minutes in total. Members may then ask questions for clarification purposes only of those presenting the deputation for an additional 15 minutes. So just to be clear, as we do not have deputations on a regular basis, the deputation is not to be debated, and members cannot speak as to say whether they agree or disagree with it, only to seek clarification if any is needed. The first deputation is regarding licensing sustainability policy. Suitability policy. Please could the speakers for this item come forward and present their case, which I believe it's David Lorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you on this important matter in support of your local taxi and private hire industry. I do welcome this time and this opportunity. So the deputation is to present the issue facing Hackney carriage and private hire drivers within your region. The issue being the old version of the Institute of Licensing Safe and Suitability Guidance, which was deemed by almost all drivers throughout the UK to be far too draconian. So much so that the Institute themselves have recently launched and... Okay.
Mr. Mayor, they'll have to sit down to speak into this microphone. Won't make any difference to the sound.
If the mic is on the other side of the table, the voice is projecting this way, so if they'd like to go to the other side, that would be much more helpful.
Try that one.
1, 2, 3. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So, this deputation is to present the issue facing Hackney carriage and private hire drivers within your region. The issue being the old version of the Institute of Licensing Safe and Suitability Guidance, which was deemed by almost all drivers throughout the UK as being far too draconian, so much so that the Institute themselves have recently launched and indeed extended a survey on their own guidance. The result of this survey was a complete overhaul, which does indeed address the issue of the DVSA penalty points and the actions that they believe local authorities should take. Many local authorities have taken a sensible approach and not adopted the guidance in full, but in parts, making variation before implementation. Most have made changes to it over the years in order to maintain localism and to support their trade, and your own licensing committee included. In fact, the guidance itself clearly states within its introduction, this guidance should not be slavishly followed, which means not to adopt it in full, but to adapt it to suit your own regional requirements. We long campaigned for change, and we were very much against many of the component parts, specifically the fact that a driver would be instantly banned from holding a licence for a minimum of 5 years if they accrue 7 DVSA penalty points, where all other professional drivers are entitled to continue to drive, including bus drivers who carry more passengers but may continue to drive with up to 12 points. We are somewhat confused, if I'm being totally honest, since this matter has already been resolved and agreed by your own licensing committee, where I personally attended and made a deputation. The decision was made to implement changes and to adopt a far more common sense approach, which means that in reality here, we're not actually asking the change to review the policy, merely to implement the changes that were made by your own licensing committee in a meeting held on the 25th of January 2023. This decision was confirmed in writing via email, where the confirmation was quite clear. As discussed, the draft policy was approved at committee today and will appear on our website tomorrow. So the industry was very grateful for the pragmatic approach and the understanding taken by the licensing committee and the efforts that have been made by the committee to work, support and help their local trade. So Wakefield Council redrafted the entire convictions policy, making it far less draconian and very much welcomed and praised by your local industry. There are elements of the DFT best practice guidance, the latest version which was issued in November 2023, that we would also like to be considered locally, including removal of operator signage. The reasons for this are simply public safety, since vehicles are seen from a distance and targeted, which has been known to cause injury to the travelling passenger. Furthermore, such damage is costly to the industry and removes the vehicles from service until they've been repaired. MOT conditions. Since the MOT is a roadworthiness test, we would formally request that both certificates are issued together, since the Department for Transport states that a compliance test is, in law, nothing more than a visual local conditions test. Since this time, your local drivers have enjoyed much stronger, healthier working partnership with the entire team, and we hope that changes will be made to continue to support and encourage that partnership. We can only wait and see what happens as a result of the new government white paper on devolution, but for now, we continue to enjoy this relationship, which can only be a good thing for the industry, for you as a council, and of course for the end user, your community, your disabled people, your children, and your nighttime economy. Addressing briefly a more local issue of restitution for the outstanding payment which is owed to the trade, following a High Court case that was in 2018. The trade is still waiting for a resolution to that. It's vital to make it perfectly clear here. At no point are we suggesting lowering standards, in fact far from it. We're simply recommending and requesting a pragmatic, sensible, practical approach which is far more supportive of your licence holders without placing any of the members of the public at risk at all. I'm happy to take any questions, and I do thank you for your time and attention.
So remember what I said right at the beginning. There are no questions at this stage. You can ask some points of clarification only. So are there any points of clarification only? Councillor Ahmed.
Just a summary of the points that you've raised. I think it was MOT versus compliance test, whether that's right, and why the DFT has a best practice guidance of 12, which allows bus drivers to continue driving, and taxi drivers would get banned at 7. Was that right as well? And then the vehicle stickers, making vehicles more open to targeted from antisocial behaviour, and a restitution payment that's outstanding since 2023. Is that 2018? Yeah. That long? Right, okay, right. So 2018. So I was just checking that there were the points that were raised in there. And as you mentioned, the licensing committee was willing to, has accepted this, or what was the rationale for the blockage then?
So at the licensing committee hearing, we did deputation. There was a lot of work that took place between ourselves and the licensing committee, and the agreement there was to abolish the 7-point rule and to make it far more amenable and practical for drivers, because 7 points isn't even a collection of 2 offences. It's just 7. If you get caught speeding twice, that's 3 points each time. So where did the 7 come from? So it was raised then that if you reached 9 points, you would then be brought in front of licensing committee for them to consider your licence and whether to revoke or suspend, and to move away from the outright rule from the IOL that isn't actually a rule, it's only guidance anyway, and make it far more logical and practical.
Thank you for that. Okay. Councillor Williamson. Point of clarification.
There's a point, like I was having trouble hearing everything, but there was a point where you said something was agreed, but then here, like what was implemented was more draconian. Could you just clarify what you said around that sort of point, if you can remember, please?
Yes, as I said, with the last point for clarification, it was agreed with the licensing committee. We received notification that should have gone into the licensing policy, and the policy amended accordingly. And for some strange reason, we're here again because it hasn't happened.
Hello. We met outside and had a chat. Thank you so much for bringing this deputation to us today, and the way that you've presented it has been clear. And I know we've got audio problems in here, but it was clear and concise, and I think most of us have understood what you're asking us to do. So under our rules, we have to refer this to our Chief Executive. But I would say that taxi drivers, as we spoke outside, taxi drivers are important to our district as to every district. And again, when you pointed out, during COVID, who did everybody turn to but the taxi drivers? So we welcome your deputation, and we will pass it on to our Chief Executive, but be assured we have listened.
Thank you. The second deputation is regarding pensions investment. Could I ask that the speakers come forward to present their deputation, which I believe is being led by Sophia Ilias?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can we not have the chairs on the other side so that their voices are projecting towards us, please? It's a struggle.
The reason being, I've just been informed, is because of the cameras facing them, so it can be seen. But what we will, if it becomes a problem, put your hand up and we'll address it again. The audio in this room is not the world's best, so if I could ask you to speak as close as you possibly could to the microphone, it would be greatly appreciated. If you get it really close to you, and if you press that red button, a little light should come on. Okay, so if you just bear with us one moment. Your time is okay as of now.
I'm Sophia Ilias. This is Susan Price, representing Wakefield Palestine Action and supported by Wakefield Trades Council. We are here to formally request that the Council works to ensure that the investments of West Yorkshire Pension Fund are in line with Council policy. We are aware that Wakefield Council is committed to peace and just over a year ago called for a ceasefire and have subsequently reaffirmed its commitment to a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. As such, we are bringing to your attention concerns with the pension fund regarding some of the companies the pension fund invests in. West Yorkshire Pension Fund provides pensions for their members as a result of their financial contributions, i.e. deferred wages, when they were employed by West Yorkshire councils. The fund also receives financial contributions from Wakefield Council, paid from council tax and government funding from national taxes. West Yorkshire Pension Fund actively manages a proportion of the fund via an in-house investment team, which is distinct from many local government pension scheme funds. This means that West Yorkshire Pension Fund makes direct decisions on a proportion of its investment funds. In October 2024, West Yorkshire Pension Fund had 5.5%, which equates to approximately £995 million, invested in companies investing in genocide, occupation and apartheid, such as weapons companies including BAE Systems and Lockheed Martin, which have supplied Israel with F-35 bombers, artillery shells and additional military-grade supplies. The BBC and Amnesty International have suggested that some of these shells were loaded with white phosphorus, a clear war crime. Banks, including HSBC and Barclays, which is Israel's primary dealer of government bonds, and there are companies like Caterpillar, whose bulldozers we are currently seeing being used to rip up infrastructure and homes in the West Bank, amongst other companies supporting the genocide, occupation and apartheid in Palestine. These investments are in direct contravention of their own responsible investment policy. Investing in these companies is also in clear conflict with Wakefield Council's commitment to peace and a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The International Court of Justice has indicated the plausibility of Israel committing genocide in Gaza. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant for their part in the atrocities. Wakefield Council is committed to investing locally to create good quality jobs, emphasising the need to create sustainability and enhance our environment. None of the aforementioned companies do this. War is one of the worst culprits in respect of harming the environment, with the unprecedented attack on Palestine being not only an act of genocide, but also one of ecocide, with the Global Health Institute noting ecocide in Gaza, Israel's genocide in Gaza will create an unprecedented environmental health crisis. Opinion polls show that the overwhelming majority of people want a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Bristol, Waltham Forest, Islington, Lewisham, Tower Hamlets, and closer to home Manchester councils have all already agreed to divest. Wakefield Council could make a difference to how West Yorkshire Pension Fund utilises some of its resources, our money, at the same time as enhancing employment in Wakefield, by demanding that West Yorkshire Pension Fund divest from the companies complicit in Israel's plausible genocide, occupation and apartheid of Palestine. We request that Wakefield Council ensure that our representatives on the pension fund call and work towards divestment from all complicit companies, working with the other representatives and feeding back to the council meeting every 3 months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Remember what I said earlier about points of clarification. Do we have any points of clarification? Councillor Heptonstall.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'd like to ask the Speaker if she could hear me speaking from where she sits. And the previous Speaker, I would like to ask the same question, because I couldn't understand what this Speaker was saying, and a lot of people on these rows couldn't, same as me. We couldn't make out what the Speaker was saying. These are important matters. We need to hear them clearly. Thank you, Chair.
Any other matters of clarification? Sorry, I can't, in a second. Sorry. I can't improve the acoustics of this room, Stuart. I can't. Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, I'd just like to inform, obviously, thank you so much for coming. You need to just add Leeds to that as well. Leeds have voted to divest, so just point of clarification for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further point? Councillor Hemingway.
Just a suggestion, Mr Mayor, on Councillor Heptonstall and others' points. Perhaps the deputations could circulate written copies of their statements to elected members who were unable to hear it during the meeting.
I'm sure we can arrange that. Thank you. Any further points of clarification? If not, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. So, if I understand it, through what's been said, through the West Yorkshire Pension Fund, which has been invested in like arms companies and stuff, then that fund's indirectly contributing to the suffering of the Palestinian people. Is that right?
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Could I just ask the Speaker, would you say that Israel's action in Gaza is of the pure self-defense?
Councillor Harvey, that is not a point of clarification. Please ask for clarification. Otherwise, turn your microphone off and please sit down.
Can I ask the Speaker to define genocide?
No, that's not a point of clarification. Any additional points of clarification? If not, can I ask the leader please to respond?
Hi, thank you for that. I'm sorry everyone couldn't hear because what you were saying was spot on, really. And we do appreciate you coming along with your deputation. Wakefield Council were one of the first councils to call for a ceasefire. We did that on the 18th of October. And I've worn this since. And I'm very proud that my friend Yuba gave me this, and it matters to me. I understand the frustration and the need to do something. We spoke outside. We're all frustrated here because we wonder what we can do. This is perhaps something that we can do. You do understand that the money that we put into the fund is something that they do, and our representatives from the two of them are here working with them. But we welcome the ceasefire that has happened, and we just hope that it holds. It's been an emotive issue across our district. It's affected communities. We've had some debates in here, and it has affected a lot of us. We can't watch the television without being affected. Again, as I said to you outside, I won't repeat everything I said outside. But we do feel and understand your concerns. Again, we have to refer this to our Chief Executive, but we will be speaking to our representatives. I have a meeting on Friday with the leaders of West Yorkshire, and I will be raising it there. As I say, we'll now pass it on to our Chief Exec. And thanks so much for coming and presenting it how you did.
Thank you.
Could I just say, if we can do anything to assist, we're more than happy to do so.
Thank you for that comment. Can I ask you to turn back to your seats? Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is the Leader's Report. Once the Leader has presented her report, she will receive comments or answer any questions from members on the matters raised in the report. Councillor Jeffrey.
I think, colleagues over there, it would be a difficult act for me to follow today. You were great. But all of us in this room were delighted and thankful for the ceasefire. And we just hope that it holds. And whatever we can do locally, we will work on that. So thank you. I think are you leaving now? Yeah, thanks very much.
Councillor Jeffrey, just let's take a moment's pause. We'll just have a minute or so until everybody's left. Thank you. I'll resist the urge to say I thought that Mr Taylor was going to give us a song there. Councillor Jeffrey, if you'd like to continue. Thank you.
I would say I think both people who presented the deputations today were excellent. It was done in a clear and dignified manner, and that's how it should happen in the council chamber. And it must have been intimidating for them. And I think the ladies who came did it in short notice because I think they were expecting someone else. So I think they did really well. So I'll just reiterate how pleased we all are about the ceasefire. And just hope that it holds. I won't wish everybody a Happy New Year because we're nearly into February, but I hope it's been a good start for everyone. It's been a tough January with the weather, and I would just like to pay tribute to our workforce. Our workforce who grit the roads, keeping us all safe. When we were coming home at 5 o'clock, they were going out till 6 o'clock in the morning, gritting, looking after us, and also making sure that none of the bins were missed. And I'm sure somebody in here will say, oh, well, we know a bin that was missed. I'm sure you do, but when you think of what they did, and compare it to other authorities who are still catching up on emptying bins now, our workforce deserve tribute, and I know Matthew will probably want to say more about that. I think it's going to be a tough year. We have the council budget, which we'll be doing later on at the end of February. We're out to consultation, and we want residents really to get involved, and apparently we've had over 600 responses in the last week, and we had 900 at our first consultation. It's tough, and it's not a good thing to make savings, but as we all know, the last government didn't fund us properly in local government, and we were hoping that we would get more funding in our settlement in December. We did get a slight increase, but it's nowhere near what we need when you think how underfunded we have been for years. And really, it's whatever party is in power, Conservatives or Labour, I don't feel, and I've been in local government all my working life, I don't think that they appreciate just how much people rely on local government. Local government is where people come to us for their issues sorting out. They don't go to the MPs as much. They come to us and they expect us to deal with everything for them. And we need to be funded properly. So what we're going to do as a Labour group, we're going to keep lobbying to get more and more funding and hope that the settlement that they're looking at in March, that we get more money, because we really need that to deliver the services that people want. The other thing I wanted to raise, and I know Michael will probably talk on it, the Wakefield Futures Commission, in partnership with Tracy Braben, and Professor Sir Chris Husbands, we are looking at bringing skills forward for young people to get the skills that we can create special jobs, extra jobs in our area. And I think Michael will probably follow through on that. But we had funding for that, and we shall move forward on that. I think I'll leave it there. I think I've probably said enough today. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
So before I open for questions, can I please ask members to ensure that questions relate to the matters raised in the report, and we simply don't use a word or phrase used to raise an issue at a tangent. Can we all respect the rules and use the time in full council chamber appropriately? Are there any comments or questions on Councillor Jeffrey's report? Okay, Councillor Ahmed.
I think on the two deputations, I think the members have gone, so I think it's important that we ask the question on the two items. When is it likely that the council would take any action, if necessary, on both areas, and who will be feeding back to the council? Because obviously the deputations were raised within the council, full council meeting. All members have heard that. So, and I think it's good that members of the public have come here and done that as well. It's nice to see people coming forward and addressing their concerns, and because I haven't seen deputation for a long time in the council chamber, so it would be good to see that those members feel, whether we agree with their comments or not agree with them, that their concerns were addressed and there's some timely information given to them in the correct way possible on there. I think that's the first thing that I would raise on there as well. And I don't know if you obviously deem that on the budget you mentioned obviously the increases, and I do partially agree with you, and I'm trying to be that government has a responsibility, but obviously as it is a Labour government, it's been in power now. I would have assumed that there would have been, you would have known at some point that the money that they promised or whatever they said they were going to give, because I remember, I think you said right at the beginning that you'd spoken to Rachel Reeves. I don't know what you asked and what you were given, so it would be nice to know whether those things that you asked, what they were and what actually was the response, and what you feel should have been given, and you know what we can do as council as well, because I think sometimes I don't mind stepping outside and annoying Conservatives and saying this was wrong or this was right, and I hope that other people would do the same when Labour do it as well. So sometimes we have to say when the party's done something wrong, whatever party it is, because it damages us locally, and councillors often end up in the, you know, MPs sit out for 5 years and they come back in 5 years' time. I know you pretend they won't, but they do. And but it's councillors that then have to face the fall of that. We all have to all answer these questions on the doorstep when actually we don't have very little to do with it. So just those two questions there, if we can answer some of that, please. Thank you.
Councillor Ahmed, thank you for that. Sorry, Councillor Jeffries. I've just been given a bit of advice, just one second. Okay. In relation to your first question about the reporting back from the deputations, both matters have been referred to the Chief Exec, who will formulate a response and come back to here with the response. In relation to the timescale, that will be up to him to decide. Over to you.
I did actually know that to answer. Yeah, but I think what we will do, Nadeem, is make sure that the Chief Exec responds to us in a quick and timely manner. But I find myself, I think we're agreeing today about government. I think I made the point clear that this government is going to have to look after local government and do more. We did get a better settlement, as I think you've probably been briefed, in December, but it's not nearly enough, and that's why we're having to make savings that we wouldn't want to make. But I do agree with you on the government, whichever government is what I said earlier.
Councillor Osman Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to follow up from the words of the Councillor Denise Jeffries on Gaza. First of all, in the week that marks 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, my thoughts and prayers go out to all those victims and survivors of genocide and annihilation, whether they be Armenian, Jew, Roma, Tutsi or Bosniak or Muslim. We cannot and must not forget, for if we do, there lies the way to letting massacres and exterminations being repeated. We all must welcome the ceasefire in Gaza that commenced on 20th of January.
Councillor Ali, is that a question to the leader or are you making a statement?
It's a comment.
It's a very long comment. Can you be a little bit more precise on the comment, please? Do you have a question? Thank you for that. Councillor Keefe.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this is the relevant place to bring this up, but there's nowhere else to bring it. I'm talking about the delivery of minutes to meetings. The postal system at the moment seems to be in such disarray.
Councillor
I got
Keefe,
the minutes to an ONS
Councillor Keefe, no, that's not a question to the leader.
Who is it till then?
Not that was mentioned in any part of the report.
So who is it till then?
With respect, what you need to do is raise that point with committee services, which has already been made by others, but please make it yourself, directly to Andrew Taylor before today's out. That'll be the perfect place to make that. Councillor Tully.
Just a point of clarification, the leader did wish everybody a belated happy Christmas, or Happy New Year, should I say. And I don't know whether it was a fraudulent slip or just something that she'd missed, but I'll stand being corrected, but did she forget to also mention that it weren't all that bad because our Featherstone by-election was successful and our successful Labour candidates in the council chamber today? Thank you.
Again, that wasn't raised in the leader's report. Thank you.
How very remiss of me. Where is Scott? We've welcomed you so many times, Scott. I forgot to do it today. But would you like to stand up and we can all give you applause?
Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions for the leader. But first and foremost, I'd like to extend my warm welcome to the guests on the gallery. And the mayor mentioned about it's too late to say Happy New Year. It's not for me. And I'd like to say today is a Chinese New Year's Day. So I'd like to say a Happy New Year to all the residents living in Wakefield with Chinese culture or Chinese heritage and any connection, than to say a Happy New Year and Gong Hei Fa Cai. So this year is a year of snake. But it's not a year dedicated to Chancellor Rachel Reeves. No. Although snake don't need winter fuel charge payment.
Councillor Harvey, ask a question that's relevant. Question's not coming. You're going to ask the question. Councillor Harvey, Councillor Harvey, I'm speaking.
Okay. Right.
Councillor Harvey, I am speaking.
Yes.
Ask your question,
My
or
question
please sit down.
Is coming.
Thank you.
With the second deputation mentioned about the war, Gaza, Israel. On Monday, the world marked a historic day of 80 years of liberation of Holocaust. So the king want to...
That is a very important point to raise, but it is not in relation to any points that was raised by the leader. Please ask your question.
I don't believe that's the case, because
please
we talked about Israel already. I'd like to know what this council has done to commemorate this important day.
Councillor Harvey, please sit down. Councillor Harvey, please sit down. Please sit down.
So that is not a question I can relate back to.
No, please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit. Please sit down. You can ask a question in a moment. You can ask a question in a moment. Please sit down. I'm going to come back to you in a moment when you've had time to compose. Councillor Rhodes. You do. Any further questions to the leader? In a moment. Councillor Harvey, please ask a question that's directly reported to the report of the leader.
Right. So, Mr. Mayor, the leader just mentioned about the council's budget. So, how to manage this council? Is it related to what? This question I'm going to ask related to the leader's comment earlier on. This month, we got to read through the much anticipated external auditor's report on Wakefield Council. I have to say, it was a fascinating read.
Sorry, that wasn't, you can't raise the thing up.
The finding was very worrying.
Sit down.
The external auditor's report is in relation to last year's budget, 23-24. The leader is talking about next year's.
On last year's budget, not this year's. Now sit down. Additional questions to the leader, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a point of clarification, the budget, I think Rachel did say in October, after her budget and her theft of £40 billion of taxpayers' money, she did say that the slate is clear and it's all on us. So the budget that's coming up now is actually all to do with the Labour Party. It's not to do with anybody else. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, we'll allow that. Agenda item 7 is to consider Cabinet member reports. Cabinet members have up to 5 minutes to present their reports, and there will be an additional 15 minutes allocated to enable each Cabinet member to respond to any questions or brief comments on matters within their portfolio. First report is from the portfolio holder for Climate and Cabinet. I'll start that one definitely again. For Climate Change and Environment. Councillor Hemingway, would you please like to introduce your council report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, in moving my report, I want to echo the leader's earlier comments regarding the tribute to frontline workers who were out in the recent inclement cold weather, particularly the bin crews that come within my portfolio. Christmas time is the busiest time of year. We've got the bank holidays, there's catch-up collections following the busy Christmas period when people have got lots of waste from Christmas presents and things like that. And they managed to catch up with the Christmas backlog in excellent time, and we didn't have to suspend collections. Unfortunately, a number of our neighbours had to suspend collections due to the snow and the ice, but our crews managed to get out there and collect the waste. So I just want to say a huge thank you to them for all their efforts. In my report this month, I'm pleased to feedback that air quality has continued to improve across the Wakefield district in this year's annual report, and we now have no areas exceeding target levels, and that's largely due to a reduction in transport emissions, but also improvements in air quality, tree planting, things like that. We are continuing to monitor air quality in Wakefield City, which is just under the target, but we are hopeful that there will be further interventions from both ourselves and partner organisations in the coming years, such as around low-emission buses, which will make significant improvements to air quality in the city as well. Lastly, I'm really pleased to report that our Environmental Health Services won a national award for Best Performing Environmental Health Department at the APSI Awards, and a number of other key areas were shortlisted for awards as well. So congratulations to Environmental Health and all the teams that worked so hard in that area. And with that, Mr Mayor, I shall move my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hemingway. Are there any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Sharp.
Hi, Jack. Yep, thanks for your report. Can you just please clarify what you mean in terms of lower transport emissions? Because as I understand it, or last time I knew, the council doesn't control the whole fleet of transport that's on our roads. So how have you even measured that? Where have you even got that from? Because my car isn't owned by the council. I'm sure everyone else's cars is not owned or run by the council. So you've just made a really big statement there, and I just want you to clarify it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Yeah, the Council has legal duties to monitor air quality, not just for the emissions that we create, but also that are created across the district more broadly. So this isn't just about council vehicles. This is about the transport figures for residents, for businesses, any emissions where we've got a monitoring station, that picks them up, and obviously it doesn't separate based on the council, it separates all the emissions into the different categories. So we have those monitoring stations where there's been previous issues or where there's particular likelihood to be high transport emissions, and what they're showing is that emissions have come down, and that's largely because of changes in transport. So in terms of the buses, the council, yes, doesn't directly control emissions around buses. We work with the combined authority and the bus companies on that. But what we're seeing is because of the trends to switch to electric vehicles and other low-emission forms of transport, that seems to explain in the evidence gathered in the report the reason for that reduction in emissions, and hopefully those trends will continue with what we're doing. Of course, it's not all down to the council, it's down to consumers and what residents are doing, but we do play a role in that and continue to support improved air quality.
Councillor Gert.
Yes, thank you, Jack. I'd just like to add my thanks to the street scene crew and the bin collections. I don't know whether it happened anywhere else across the district, but in our ward we missed a recycling collection over the new year. And I must admit, when it was first muted, I thought this is going to cause big problems. We'll have fly tipping all over the place. So I'd like to say a big thank you to the residents of Notley and Ferrybridge for coping with it. And when we did get the
collection, and I went out on the morning and I saw the amount of rubbish that was left out of the house. I thought, how much of this is going to get left behind? And credit to the crews, they took every last bit of it, and we might have had the odd bit of fly tipping, but overall it went a lot smoother. So I'd just like to say thank you to the residents of Nottingham Ferrybridge for coping with it, and thank you to the crews for their hard work.
Thank you, Councillor Gert. Councillor Ali.
It's just a comment for Councillor Hemingway. It's good to see the White Rose Forest tree planting initiative take place in Walton Colliery Nature Park. However, I've got a constituent and resident, Chris Hollins, who's asked me if there's an opportunity for us to plant trees in Crofton or anywhere else in Ward 5. I look forward to Jack's response.
Was that constituency work that you just raised there? Anyway, we can talk about that later. Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Hi, thank you. This is a thanks as well. This is a thanks as well from my residents in Ward 2, from our residents in Ward 2, that we had some diseased trees that had to be removed, and we've had them replaced after some residents contacted us, and I contacted the department, and my residents, our residents, just want to say a big thank you. The new trees are great, and they look forward to see them blossoming in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments to Councillor Hemingway? No? Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Hemingway. The next portfolio is Adults and Health, and Councillor Collins, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I would just like to start moving my report, just giving thanks to all the workers who have worked over the festive period, and also in the cooler weather. We have lots of healthcare workers, care workers, hospital workers, and we've heard stories, particularly in the snowy weather, where we've had good Samaritans with 4x4s driving people to appointments, and our healthcare workers walking on foot miles to be able to get to their visits, so that they're looking after the most vulnerable in our district. So I'd just like to pay thanks to all of them. And then finally, just a brief moving today to update on Hazelgarth Care Home. We're now in a position, works are progressing well down at there, and we're in a position to look like we're going to be opening the home at the beginning of April. I will be back in touch with a more definitive sort of timescale on action plan on what we're doing, which I know is also being looked at by scrutiny. And with that, I'll move it and take any questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, out of all the reports today, you've done a page. Yeah, you can't be bothered, can you? You're not bothered. You don't know any. You don't. To write about smoking in like pregnancy, you've got no. You've literally just clutching at straws to write information in your report.
Councillor Sharp, sorry for interrupting, but it is an important point.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to it.
Can I just make my important point first?
Sorry.
Please?
Yeah.
Whether it's a long report or a brief report, we don't need to be throwing insults backwards and forwards. Yeah, but we don't need to be passing personal comments backwards and forwards. Well, I took it to be a personal comment. So if you'd like to continue asking a question, please do. But if not, otherwise, please be quiet.
Also, you've just said you're underway in reopening Hazelgarth on the 1st of April. It's not in your, like, why would you not put that in your report? I don't understand. That's really monumental information that people would want to read about, and the information should be publicly available on the council's website to be able to access, because that's an actual thing that you are or maybe are doing. So it's just curious as to why you've not put that in your report, because that's quite a bit of important information.
Thank you for that.
I think the purpose of these reports are to update council members on what is happening in the portfolio. So in terms of Hazelgarth, it's not in the report simply because I have updated it here, and it's not in the report because the timescales are getting it printed. So not everything that happens within my area will be given a definitive in timescales. We have to be at Hazelgarth very cautious that we make sure that people that need to know first before we announce it publicly, because it would be very unfair of me to come here or put in a piece of paper and make an announcement when we've not had time to do work with our staff, to do work with former residents and families. So all that has to be taken into consideration. And in terms of my report being a page, I mean, if you want to send me some suggestions of what you'd like to see it, more than happy to take them along. I don't know if you are aware, I mean, you should
Allow
because it's in
people
there,
to answer
but
questions,
we are undergoing
please.
a CQC inspection at the moment, so a lot of my officer time has been taken by doing that, and I will not update on every single step of the way because that is an enormous amount of work, and actually there is better things to be doing. The CQC inspection, we are expecting it, they are coming to see us, and I am not going to take I take exception actually to saying it's me being lazy as opposed to me letting officers do the work that they need to do. In there is that you can ask me questions on anything you want, Nadia. So what is not in my report that you would like to see?
Councillor Collins,
And I've just
Councillor
reported on
Collins,
that.
Councillor Collins, it's my job to ask. Councillor Sharp, will you behave, please? No, behave. And she allowed you the decency to ask your question without interrupting you, which you haven't done at all today. So I'd respectfully ask you just to bear that in mind. Thank you. Councillor Collins, do you...
It kind of got covered on there. I did welcome your email to tell me that, you know, when the timescale is that we might be getting Hazelgarth back open. I just want it reiterated. I want confirmation that it's definitely going to still provide dementia care across the district.
There has been a commitment from the very beginning that Hazelgarth will open providing dementia care.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Mel Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just read with interest about the shared concerns about vaping in young people, and it's clearly an issue. And it's a comment, really, that trading standards rely on reports to be able to act on any underage sales. So in this room, I would ask anybody if you do have any concerns of underage vaping sales to report it direct to trading standards.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I refer to the paragraph in page 14 about the vaping and public health? Can I just comment and say to the Cabinet member that I really do welcome this report here today, as vaping amongst our young people and indeed older is something that we all have to care about in terms of the nicotine content and education through our schools. Our Officer for Public Health attended our resources meeting last week. It is. I'm going to add to that in a minute, Peter, if you'll allow me, Mr. Mayor. I know it's very difficult, Mr. Mayor. It is the vaping issue, and we're all very concerned about it in terms of the health issue involved. There's been a study carried out here, as the report suggests here, Michelle, and I do think it might be interesting. I'll certainly be asking for it at my health committee, but I think it might be interesting, Mr. Mayor and members, if we could have some information about that study so we're all aware of the campaign that's going through as well as trading standards. And as I have the opportunity of the mic, Mr. Mayor, can I just say, it is very difficult for any of us to hear, and we are nearer to some of the front row than some of our colleagues. Could I suggest, please, that following today, a lot of members' concerns about it, and there are issues, and it's ongoing, could we ask that the portfolio for resources in connection with our Chief Exec takes up some remedial action in terms of the microphone in the centre today? It is impossible to hear. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Point well made, thank you. Councillor Key.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's carrying on this about vaping. I conducted a meeting with the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue's Community Safety Committee on Friday, and we discussed the most important thing that is happening if you visit South Kirby. It's the disposal of vapes as well. We must make sure that even though we're against these young people necessarily entering into smoking by using vapes, it's how they dispose of them, because they're disposing of them into the recycling bin. Obviously it gets put in back at lorry, gets crushed halfway around the thing, and then when it gets to South Kirby it bursts into flames. It's disposing of vapes that's important.
Thank you, Councillor Keefe. Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on the quick subject on the ability to hear, there are these little earphone gadgets down available at the reception for anybody who wants them, and I can hear everything, including the deputations, perfectly.
Thank you for that information. Councillor Gert.
Thank you for that. I'll speak to you later so you show me where I can get them from. Yeah, it's carrying on from the vapes, if I may. Have you had any reports? We've been hearing from schools that they've been testing some of these vapes in schools and finding drugs in them. Have you had any reports from that, and would it be possible to check out whether that is actually going on, because that's quite a serious issue if drugs are being put into these vapes? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gert.
Thank you. Yeah, so just in terms of the study that's been done, I'll pick up that point first. It was done with a fantastic group of pupils from one of the local schools, and they did come into the council and do some presentation work on that. And I'm sure, Betty, that they'll be happy to perhaps even attend, because they were very well engaged in the research, and I'll make sure that all members have got that. The disposable vapes are a huge problem, and to pick both your points up really, I'm not aware of any specific testing that had been done by the schools. I'm sure that they may well have done some, but not that I've been aware of. But generally, there has been generalised testing on the vapes that are disposable, the illegal vapes, the ones that offer more than sort of the 2 ml of liquid nicotine that you're allowed in them that you can buy in a normal garage. And there has been lots of things in there that would be poisonous to particularly young people. And we've heard lots of reports of children that have become quite unwell after using some of these bigger disposable vapes. There is, government appear to be tackling that with a ban on the disposable vapes later in the year, but the current vapes that are on sale that are a problem are already illegal. So working with West Yorkshire sort of training standards to be able to pick them up, so if anybody does have information to be able to do that, is the way that we tackle it. It is worrying. Younger people that wouldn't necessarily have spoken before, it's becoming sort of a trend, and they are targeted at young people. They're dressed very much to be advertised to children with some of the flavours, some of the flashing lights. So it is a worry, but we are doing the research. We are guiding the national research on that as well with the stuff that we're doing here in Wakefield. So I will just keep you updated on anything else that we get on that.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Collins, I was very pleased to read that the Wakefield Public Health team are going to start looking at gambling and start taking it in its harm seriously. And I'm very pleased, you've given us a list of things you're going to do, one of which says limit gambling ads on council property and platforms. Is there any possibility of eliminating them completely and just not having any gambling ads on council property or platforms? I don't expect an answer immediately, obviously, but if you could let me know. Thank you.
It's been heard, and I'll pass it on, Hilary.
Councillor Vickers.
Yes, Mr Mayor. Two comments, really. The comment about gambling and gambling premises mostly in deprived areas. I think that's important to know, but we should also know how prevalent gambling on the internet is as well. I think that's damaging. And the other comment is I'd just like to thank Councillor Collins for this concise report. It's obviously full of good stuff with the debates that's followed. Thank you, Councillor Collins.
Any further questions to Councillor Collins? No. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Collins. Next portfolio is for children and young people. Would Councillor Isherwood please introduce your report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And in presenting my report, I'd like to send congratulations to Michaela Raj, who was recognised as the Children's and Young People's Champion at the CYP Awards this year, and also to the Wakefield Youth Justice Service team, who've also received recognition for the amazing work that they do across the district. I want to thank the young people and parents and carers who helped to shape the local projects in the healthy and sustainable communities. We talked about vaping. You'll see at the first point there that it is a serious concern for young people. That they have concerns about it, and it's good that it's being looked at and dealt with. And finally, I'd like to mention the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I love this. I think the work they're doing is absolutely amazing, and it's in some of our most deprived areas. But the importance of getting children involved in reading at an early age, it is really important. So thank you for all the work that's been done there. And with that, I move my report.
Thank you, Councillor Isherwood. Any questions or comments to Councillor Isherwood? Councillor Appleyard.
I just want to share in the equally, I think the figures there that you've shown with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library are fantastic. What you've said in terms of kind of getting children to love reading, a passion for reading at a young age, genuinely sets them up for life. So I think that work there is fantastic, and I commend you and the team.
Any additional questions or comments? No? Thank you very much. Councillor Sharp.
Hi, Margaret. Do we not have any statistics as to how many kids have come from the private schools into our comprehensive schools across the district? We've not seen any figures with regards of how the plans have been affected in terms of school capacity places. Thanks.
Thank you for that.
I'm happy to ask the question and get back to you on that.
If there are no additional questions, we'll move on to the next portfolio holder, which is Communities and Poverty. Would Councillor Cummins please like to introduce her report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I'd just like to say, on behalf of everybody else, I'm finding it difficult today to hear what's actually happening in here. It's very, very difficult. Whether the volume's been turned down or not, I don't know, but it is very difficult to hear. But anyway, moving my report, I'll just give you a quick update on the bed poverty campaign that we ran over Christmas. We were able to raise £43,500 in donations from a variety of VCSE groups, the council, and donations that people actually made. And we actually helped over that period to deliver 207 beds, which have helped 275 children. Some of those beds are bunk beds, and we are actually continuing with that campaign. The Mayor of South Yorkshire has actually committed to ensuring that any family in poverty who has a child gets a free cot with all the necessary stuff to go with it. We will be speaking to the West Yorkshire Mayor as well. An update on the Household Support Fund 7. We've not heard officially yet whether we're going to get it, but we've got fingers crossed that we are going to get it again. The last thing I want to mention is National Commonwealth Day, and Josie and the Armed Forces team are in the early planning stages of actually commemorating Commonwealth Day on the 10th of March, and once that has been agreed, then there will be an email sent round to all members who might wish to attend. It will be a celebration up at the Cenotaph. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if you speak up, if you're asking me a question.
Thank you, Councillor Cummins. Are there any comments or questions to the portfolio holder? Councillor Speak.
Hiya. Sorry, let me get my glasses on. Household Support Fund. I've done quite a lot of printing the vouchers off, you know, for the older people. They're all bringing them to me, as I do. But the problem is they've been sent a letter with the for me to do and put it in, but they've actually getting sent to the Kellenly Club still. And they've told to go to the Kellenly Club, which has now closed down a month. So they're older, they're hard to get about. They're going to one end of town, realising it's shut because they've been told to, and then finding the way to me. So if we can communicate on, maybe I don't mind doing them. We're picking up a lot of that work because there's no other hubs or buildings left now to where they should be going on the letters rather than them going to the wrong place. Is that maybe we could put that across.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to all our hubs actually across the district for helping people out who are vulnerable that get a letter and don't know what to do with it. They are going to places such as your community centre to actually have the vouchers printed off. But I will ensure that the welfare team take Kellingley Club off there, and if you're okay to have them pointed in your direction, we'll have them pointed in your direction. Thank you.
Councillor Farmer.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Illegal cigarettes and vapes. Can you pass on my thanks to the licensing enforcement team who are basically doing the role of what they should be doing in protecting the people who are actually, or the businesses that are actually dealing with cigarettes and vapes that are actually genuine. What's the council doing as regards passing on to the members of the public in the Wakefield district exactly what is in these illegal cigarettes and vapes? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a public health campaign about raising awareness of what's in these vapes, and I think Michelle covered it in her report. These throwaway vapes need to be banned altogether because they're the worst ones. But we do, I think, through the public health team, try and raise awareness. There is an anti-vaping and smoking group that meet on a regular basis, trying to get the messages out to schools mainly that vapes are no good for you. And through the big conversation, in actual fact, that was a big issue with young people, was where they got vapes from and what was in the vapes. So yeah, we do our best both in public health and certainly in communities to raise awareness of what's actually in these things.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You might not be able to answer this right now, but the Household Support Fund, we've found that there's a hole in it with people that receive full council tax benefit. They don't receive any household support fund and they're clearly on the poverty line too. And I'm just wondering if this is something that we can look at.
Yeah, it's something we're always looking at. I mean, we've had the debate in here time and time again, people who are just on the edge of vulnerability that don't claim anything. We actually do have a list of those people as well, but we're constantly looking at where and who we can help. But I'm happy to have that discussion with you.
Councillor Gert.
Yeah, this is on the subject of the fly tipping, which I was very pleased to see that we've had some successes and some fines. Is it possible to publicise this a bit more? I know it's difficult nowadays to get publicised. A report on Look North would be brilliant. And name and shame these people as well, because it is a blight across the district, isn't it? And if we can show that we're being more proactive in it, it might deter people.
We do try desperately. That's exactly what we want to try and do, is to name and shame people, crushing vehicles and all sorts of things that we do. And when we do have a real good success, we publish it to death. But you're absolutely right. We need to get the messages out there that, fly tipping is not the done thing. I mean, in a rural area, and I represent a rural area, we suffer dreadfully from fly tipping. People are it's easier to throw it in on the grass verge than it is to go down to South Kirby or up to Denbydale Road and just take it where it's free. But yeah, we try and publicise where we can and name and shame, and we will continue to do that.
Any further questions or brief comments to Councillor Cummings? Thank you, Councillor Cummings. The next portfolio is Culture, Leisure and Sport. Councillor Appleyard, would you like to introduce your report?
I will do. Good job, I'm only 5'1", doesn't make it that hard. Thank you, Mr Mayor. In moving my report, it might be 2025, but we're still going to celebrate and sing about the successes of our year 2024. When you look at the detail here in the report, a massive, massive thanks again to the officers, the commitment and passion that they showed, but crucially as well, the community groups that got involved as well, because it wouldn't have been what it was without them. Across the report as well, hopefully you can see as well just how cultural, leisure and support is kind of showing its commitment and investment in the health and the well-being of everybody across the district, whether it's through our Aspire membership, whether it's the swimming successes, working with obviously children in schools. On the schools note as well, we had a fantastic Our Year conference where teachers across the district came and got the most fantastic CPD. As a teacher, I know just how important CPD is and good quality CPD. So again, thank you to everybody. And I just want to point out that, you know, this conference was making the point about our education is about where we are and our district and the cultural heritage. And as we know as a council, we want to make people really proud of our district. And I think education and this type of education plays a really, really important role with that. The last thing I do want to point out is, I think it deserves a drum roll, WX will be opening in a few weeks' time. We've got a fantastic series of events coming up. I encourage you all to go along. There's some fantastic food and beverage vendors there, as well as fantastic culture. So please get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleyard. Any questions or brief comments on her report? Councillor Shah.
How much did Our Year cost the council and how much money did it bring into the council? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Sharp. I'll be honest, I'll go back to our officers and get that in terms of what it brought in terms of the measurement of that, because there's going to be lots of different variables. We'll do our best to get that information. Again, to remind you, Our Year was funded, we had council budgets, but it didn't cost any more than in previous years, and obviously it was externally funded as well. We had lots of funding from WICA, Arts Council, England and that kind of thing. But to the answer to your question of what it brought in, I will go back to the officers and to see what answer we can get for you.
She did actually. If you don't know the answer to that, would you put it in a report? But if you do, please answer.
The accounts haven't yet been closed yet, so I can't give you a final answer in terms of the exact figure, but I will do. Yeah, I will do, of course I will.
Councillor Gert.
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. This isn't in your report, but it is in your portfolio, so I understand I'm allowed to talk about it. And I want to clarify something from the last meeting. Obviously, I'm going back to the murals now. And following on from some Facebook posts that were brought to my attention, where they were aghast that I would dare to raise the point, I'd like to just clarify it. So we received an email on the 6th of November 2024, which was the first time I'd even seen these designs. I'd not seen them before, not been properly consulted on them. And in the bullet point, written by one of your members, I'm not going to name the person because we're not allowed to name council officers, but bullet point was also, and I've written it down to make sure I quote it correctly, a specific point came out about the lightning strike at the top of the design potentially being a Nazi symbol. So just to clarify that, Mr Mayor, it wasn't me that originally said it was a Nazi symbol. It was a member of your team. All I did was publicise it. And it can be a matter of opinion whether or not you think it is. Most of the people that I've shown it to, over 70% of them straight away said that's a Nazi symbol. And to compare it with the lightning badges on 619 Squadron is quite frankly pathetic. So that was the first time I'd seen them. And this is the thing with consultations. If you're going to have consultations, you've got to consult properly. And right at the start of this process, I said I cannot make meetings on a Tuesday or Friday morning because I am managing the local food bank. I'm not out playing golf, I'm managing the food bank. So when were all the meetings arranged? Tuesdays and Fridays mornings. How is that proper consultation? Come on. So then, after the palaver of the last meeting, we get an email on the 11th of December. No apology from the artist, saying, you know, sorry, I didn't mean to cause offence, nothing like that. just how upset I'd made him. Well, whoopee-doo, I don't care. And the email finishes, should you still feel unable to support the smooth running of the process to enable residents and businesses to comment on the murals, we would be left in the position of having to cancel the project, as the artist would no longer wish you to continue without local member support. So I looked at the new designs. The one for Ferrybridge, not to my taste, didn't find it offensive, probably could learn to live with it. The one for Nottingley, a long wall, I'll try and describe it to you. A long wall, splash of colour on the back, big white letters on the front of it, made in Nottingley. What's made in Nottingley? Oh, well, if you scan this QR code, let's, come on. Would any of you, seriously, would any of you want that in your wards? So, of course, we've said no. When this idea was first put forward, out of the three of us, I was the one most in favour of it, because I like murals. I like them. So to then turn round and say, well, if you don't like what we're going to offer you, you're having note.
Can I ask you just to wind up now, because it does say brief.
Yeah, is that fair to say, you don't like what we're offering you, if you're not going to accept what we're offering you, you have nothing. That's not fair.
Thank you, Councillor Gert. Would you like to respond? Thank you.
As it isn't the case, well, put it this way, we're going back out to consultation again. I'll take your point about Tuesdays and Fridays. We'll pass that back so that obviously that you all have opportunity to go. And I think to one of your points, I think if I lived in Nottingley, was from Nottingley, and I saw Made in Nottingley, I think that that art would be representing me. If not, then maybe the glass, the famous glass that's made.
Councillor Spate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to comment on the note that the Aspire membership is going strong. And just to say that, talking from a personal perspective, I've been attending Aspire at the park, and I did the cardiac rehabilitation followed by the exercise on referral. And I really have to say a huge thanks to the staff there, both from the NHS and from the council, who were really brilliant at their jobs. And I can say that the people attending really, really value their input. So they're absolutely top-rate things to have there. And I can see that membership is going up because the place is just buzzing. It's absolutely great. And I know I'm being a bit naughty here, but I have to say it. I was chatting to two ladies who were having a cup of tea, and they said how much they enjoyed it, and was delighted when I found out they both came from Nottingley.
Councillor Ish, would you like to respond, Councillor Appley?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a comment really about the swimming. I think it's so good that the swimming programme is being taken up, and it is really important for children across the district, not only to learn to swim, but to understand about water safety. And I think the work that's being done by the team is really excellent.
Can I thank both members then? I will pass that on. I think, again, the Aspire membership, it shows just what fantastic quality local authority, leisure can provide. It's awesome. We really are competing with the best, I think.
Any further questions or brief comments to Councillor Appleyard? Thank you. Portfolio holder for Planning and Highways, would you like to present your report, Councillor Morley?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much for that. As the leader alluded to, we did see some significant snowfall across the district. In fact, the snow that came at the start of the month was the first significant snowfall we'd seen since 2021, and the first prolonged snowy snap we'd had since 2010. So it just shows you how infrequent we do get these spells. So I do pay tribute to the team across Highways. It is mainly the Highways team with some support from other services that come in to do the gritting. But we had two shifts going constantly around the district at that time, so I do thank them for that. But that being said, there's a day job to do, the day-to-day running of the highway service. And you look at my report there, there's schemes right across the district that we've delivered over the last few months. It was good to hear from some of the Pontefract members about the Baileygate scheme, how that's been working, how that's transformed that area, and that'll support the horse fair scheme when we fetch that forward. So with that, I'm quite happy to move my report, Mr Mayor, and take any questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Questions or brief comments? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you. Yeah, so it was reported to me a couple of weeks ago that Jerry Clay Lane is not on a route to be gritted, which to me just sounds bizarre because it's on a school, it's on a main highway, it's on a main road, it's not out in the sticks. Is it possible to get a list of all the routes that are included for gritting? Because I'd probably bet £1,000 that nearly all of them are in your ward, to be honest, because they're not going to be. If you can't grit Jerry Clay Lane, when I got a response from an officer saying we cannot confirm if Jerry Clay Lane will be included in the new routes, so it's obviously not. It is anticipated that any alterations to the precautionary gritting routes will be introduced in time for the next winter season. When I obviously have to forward this to my constituents who report these issues to me, the response I got was, again, the school has reported that a child was nearly hit by a car last week and the roads have not been icy, which is really concerning. So how do we get routes that have been reported as safety concerns onto the roster, if you like, of being gritted, rather than roads that have probably get gritted year in, year out, and nothing ever changes? Thank you.
Councillor Sharp, thank you for that question. Councillor Morley.
Yeah, I'm sure the residents of Bottomboat in my ward, we love to have their road gritted. It's one way in, one way out, and it's not included on the gritting route, so I'm not sure about all my ward being gritting, but it's there to see. If you go into Wakey Winter, it's on the council webpage, the entire gritting route of the district is there to see. It's there year in, year out. It's there during the summer months. Anyone can see that. We do review it annually, but we've grit 40% of the district's roads that are used by 90% of the people. We simply cannot grit everywhere. It's impossible. To grit everywhere would take a significant capital investment and a significant revenue investment. And I've just said, the spells of weather do not come very often. It could be a great amount of layout that you would not get a return for. So not all schools, I think every one of us in our wards will have schools that are not on gritting routes. Once we do grit the primary routes in severe weather, we get them moving and flowing. We then do move into secondary routes that include doctors' surgeries, hospitals, schools, where have you. That's what we're set up to do. But unfortunately, we cannot grit everywhere.
Councillor Gert, I will come back to you.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Just a quick reminder first, I did email you about the current works going on at Morrison's Junction, and you've not responded to me, so if you could do that for me, please. But your section on lobbying for better bus services, if you remember last year when you put your motion in about buses, I did speak to you about the trains, and you said you'd be bringing a motion forward about the trains. If you could bring that up, because especially in Nottingham, the trains are getting worse. They're constantly cancelling them. And, you know, Nottingham is the end of the line. My wife was coming home the other night, and she gets to Pontefract, Monkhill, and it was right with terminating the train. And you've got half a train load of people trying to get to Nottingham, and it's, well, get off then. You know, it's not on. So we need to focus on the trains as well as the buses, please.
Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And if I may take a little bit of a licence, since it's my first time, just to thank everyone who has supported me and showed guidance since being elected, and also extend that thanks to the civil servants as well in part of my induction, all the way up actually to the Chief Executive, where he took a bit of time just to say hello and speak to me. So for that, I'm genuinely thankful for. but more so to the portfolio of Matthew. So again, first job that I reported was done on Christmas Eve, so testament to the civil servants that are going out repairing our roads, and much thanks for that. But to the main question, if I may. So Rob Burrows passed away, as you know. We're a long fight against MND, and I can see you're wondering where this is going. But the Featherstone as an area, my town, was actually, I believe, the catalyst in advancing his stardom in rugby league. Now, the streets in Featherstone was flooded with local residents because of his links to Featherstone, flooded the streets, and that's not where the link to highways comes in, Mr. Mayor. But the people of Featherstone, I do believe, would like to see some form of testimony to Rob Burrows. So is there scope to honour Rob's legacy, in conjunction with his family, of course, as the people of Featherstone would like, perhaps in the naming of a locomotive that will honour Rob across the district, in terms of Wakefield, West Yorkshire and the wider community?
Thank you for that question. Before I ask Councillor Morley to respond, is somebody watching a video in here? Because I can hear somebody watching something somewhere. Because I can hear twittering going on in the background, like somebody's watching YouTube. I've not got them in today. Councillor Morley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Ashton, welcome to the Council Chamber, and thank you for that question, the most important question. You are not alone, as a matter of fact, at the moment. There are other groups that are asking for some sort of permanent memorial to the late, great Rob Burrows. I know the Castleford Civic Society, too, have asked if a train could be named after him. The question was raised last Wednesday at the West Yorkshire Transport Committee, and a meeting will be taking place with Northern and Combined Authority and interested parties about if we can move this forward. Obviously, in conjunction with the support of the family will be greatly needed, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's something that Rob was a legend, and by a train, it ties West Yorkshire together that will be used in our district. So thank you for raising the question, and it's something we will move forward on. Thank you.
Councillor Law.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start by thanking Matthew and all the team for the great job that they did keeping the main roads open and everything during a difficult time. I appreciate that you can't grit everywhere, but it would be nice if moving forward to next year, if we could just plan out a little bit more so as we can get some of the B roads to enable some of the schools to open and people to get in and out of the elderly facilities. That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, I appreciate you can't grit everywhere, Matthew, but when you've had 3 reports of a child and three different children on 3 different occasions, one from the head teacher actually reporting to customer services that these 3 children have nearly been killed, something needs to give. So I understand there's probably a list out there of the roads that you do grit, and it's 40% of the district, but if it's the same roads and there's new roads that are coming to be more dangerous and more concerning, that kids are nearly getting hit by cars and run over, surely you need to change your strategy and how you deal with that. Surely that's your responsibility. Surely you care.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think we all care in here. That's why we're here. We all care about the people in the district, and we do have roads that are dangerous, and we are led by the statistics from West Yorkshire Police of where them dangerous roads are. I don't know the details of everything that Councillor Sharp's raised there about these 3 accidents and what they've been about, but we do take into consideration all aspects of road safety when we're looking at all aspects of our roads, and we still cannot grit everywhere. But if there is been statistics on accidents outside Jericho, because it's not a new road, obviously, been there for many, many years, it will be taken into consideration.
Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Under the Portfolio Holders Cabinet, I'd like to give my condolences to the tragic loss of life recently in Ward 18. And I understand that we, the Council, will support the police with any recommendations from the police investigation once it's concluded. Fatalities seem to be increasing around Wakefield recently and at the minute. And as we all know, one is too many. I'm sure that the Cabinet Holder and Councillors will join me in reinforcing that we, the Council, are committed to Vision Zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryan. You make a very valuable point. Obviously, Vision Zero, it's something we are committed to in the district. You are right that the police will obviously investigate the coroner. If there is any recommendations, we will take them on board. But at this moment, obviously, it is an open investigation.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say, Matthew, if you could offer my thanks to the gritting team. I had a resident that's terminally ill and attends St James's Hospital for treatment, and she couldn't get out of her estate, but she followed the link that Wakefield Council had posted on the Facebook page and suggested that her, could they grit her road? And not only did they grit her road, which we were very, very grateful for, they asked her which route she took to get to St James's, and they actually gritted the whole route that she took right down to the M62, and she could not be more grateful, and she's asked me to pass her thanks on. Thanks, Matthew.
I appreciate you raising that, Councillor Pritchard, because these times when they can go up and above the call of duty, and that to me is one of them times to help somebody in the most need. I'm sure there's other incidents like that across the district, so I do appreciate you raising that.
Councillor Keefe.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of things there. In support of my ward colleague here that raised the issue regarding Jerry Clay Lane, it was the incident that was off of Jerry Clay Lane, that was Brandycar Road, where the police closed the road because it was slippery. And it's becoming, what we're asking for is a review, because people have changing their routes to the motorway, and things that was probably on a gritting route when they set it up 5 years ago have changed. So it's a review that we're looking for. But also, can I just say, in support of my colleague Councillor Bryan, who was also at the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Community Safety last week, there has been a spike, particularly in road traffic collisions in Wakefield over the last few weeks, of which the latest tragedy is just one. But there has been a spike. We do need to drill down into this, not just look at it from a point of view of young drivers, but to make sure that we can do anything that we can to assist that reduction down to zero with interventions by the Highways Department. Thank you, Chair.
Just to say, I think I did make the point, the gritting network will be reviewed. We do review it periodically, and it will be taking all aspects of winter gritting, so that will be carried out this summer.
Councillor Swift.
Welcoming the restoration of the full hourly 7-day train service direct from Wakefield Kirkgate to York via Normanton and Castleford, and direct to Manchester Piccadilly via Huddersfield. Thank you.
Very quickly on that, Mr Mayor, it just shows you that people power and campaigning with the local MPs and everybody else doesn't get involved.
Any further questions to Councillor Morley on his portfolio? No. Thank you very much indeed. The next portfolio is Regeneration and Economic Growth. Councillor Graham, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just two things to mention. First of all, on the Wakefield Futures Commission, as people will have seen, we have put together a team of people, a mixture of people who live locally, work locally from the education sector, and some pretty big names nationally, to come together and look at the district and the further and higher education provision and our capacity and what we can do to get people in this district ready for the jobs for the future. So really interesting piece of work there that's being funded through a grant from the government. So no cost to us. I think from a lot of people have said, and I think Nadim's mentioned a few times in the chamber about the need for a university in Wakefield. I think we're the biggest city without one. And this is all about making sure what's right, rather than just say we need a university. We've got Wakefield College, we've got Backstage Academy, who are out there delivering further education courses. So what can we do, or what more can we put behind that and move it on? or do we need a standalone university? What will be best for the people of this district? So really excited, and I think the most important thing is that we get a list of recommendations from that we can quickly act on. I don't want this to be a piece of work that we do and then put on a shelf. We need to actually do something about it and get the ball rolling, so excited about that. Second thing, I just want to thank all of the staff, the students and the governors, Councillor Hepworth, one of those, at the Adult Education Service. They've been waiting a very long time for Ofsted to come in, and they've finally been in, and I'm really looking forward to that judgment being made official and being able to share it. But just to say, it's so stressful when Ofsted come in. I think children's services and other services in the council know, teachers in the room will know. It's the most stressful time ever, so well done for getting through it, and can't wait to look at that in the future. With that, Mr Mayor, move the report and happy to take any questions or comments.
Are there any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, two things, Michael. We do need a standalone university. It's not up for negotiation or debate. If we take what's happening in terms of innovation and climate change for the future, especially with BI, AI and everything, we could dedicate a university to be able to encompass those courses. Backstage Academy and Wakefield College aren't doing anything to do with that. So if we took the initiative to build that, that would only benefit us. So that's number one. Number two, who is the council's strategic named partner? What's the company called, please? Thank you.
Councillor Keith. Oh, Graham.
Yeah, sorry, I'll forget otherwise if I don't answer them straight away. First one, on the university, I'd definitely like to see a university in Wakefield. I think the college and Backstage Academy do some fantastic work. And just to say, I think feedback from councillors as well. I'm the voice for us in there, so if you want to feed anything in, so I've listened to what you've said on that, and happy to put that forward. In terms of the strategic partner, could I refer to legal? I don't know if we're allowed to say that, yeah? We are allowed to say that, yeah? in that case, the preferred strategic partner will be called Muse. M-U-S-E, is that right?
Limited, LLP, what's the full name?
I'll email you. It's called, you can Google it, it's called Muse, but I can Google you any specifics, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's the Energy Saver Scheme still available. Whilst we appreciate that we can insulate our homes, I always come back, because it's the area that I work in, I always come back to the old adage that if you put a tea cosy on a cold teapot, it don't make it warm. And so we can insulate as much as we possibly can, but we must make sure that some of the more vulnerable and some of the elderly and some of those pressurised with a little bit of economic problems can still afford to turn their heating on. Insulation won't make you warm on its own. You've got to put some heating in there. So whilst I appreciate keeping the homes warm is a good thing, and we should increase the amount of homes that are insulated, we must not lose sight of the fact that we need to concentrate on keeping homes warm.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Two, if I may, Michael. First of all, on your introduction, you mentioned here about 500 businesses coming together for another successful networking event. That's really, really very supportive of the needs of the district. Do we have any outcome as a result of that meeting in terms of gains? And secondly, on the Wakefield Futures Commission, great idea here when we have Professor Chris Husbands. Forgive me saying this, Michael, I've been around and seen more commissions and strategies left on shelves, and I don't think that you would want no more than us here to reinventing the wheel, because I'm sure the Council has lots of information that can help and support the ideals of the Commission. And it would be good to know as well, Michael, if through your portfolio you're actually liaison with WICA on behalf of Wakefield as to what schemes and objectives they have that you can gain experience and work together on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks a lot, Councillor Rhodes. I think to see that number of businesses coming together is always a good thing, you know, sharing good practice. I think just moral support from each other. But I think the outcomes from that in terms of people got a lot from it, and it's a good opportunity for us because we obviously offer through Wakefield First so many different courses and sort of like CPD, like what Hannah was talking about, things that help businesses and drive them forward. So it's a great chance to showcase that as well, to take on board what you've said about the Commission also. So thanks for that.
Councillor Ali.
Thanks for that, Mr Mayor. Just to comment on Councillor Graham's report on Wakefield Futures Commission in regards to skills and educational needs of the district. I look forward to hearing more about it. I've got a paper which I would like to put forward, Michael, and I would like to hear, I would like to know how this can be done.
Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Graham's point to the adult education team and offer my sincere thanks to Philippa and all the staff that managed to pull together a very quick Ofsted turnaround, and really looking forward to the results and sharing it here because I think the staff are doing a tremendous job in adult education and they deserve every thanks we can give them. Thank you.
Councillor Pickersgill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My comment is in relation to the Wakefield Futures Commission, and just to say one of the challenges that this council's faced over the last 20-30 years is to keep people in work, and very substantially that was achieved. We've got one of the highest rates of people in work in West Yorkshire. I think we've got the highest. The difficulty that we've had is that work hasn't always been of the highest skill level. And I hope that when we look at the work of the challenge we're going to have over the next 10, 20 years is actually to raise the skill base of employment in the area. Although a university is really important, some of us remember the damage that Leeds University pulling Bretton College did to Wakefield. But as well as the university being important, I think it is important that we look at education at all levels. You know, it's the sort of the BTEC, the various sorts of professional qualifications and technical qualifications and those sorts of things as well that we need to develop across the district. I very much welcome the Commission, but I do hope it's going to be looking at upskilling across all levels. Thank you.
Yeah, just to say on that, I think it's a point very well made. I think the skill, we all know Wakefield is lower on level 4 than a lot of other places, and that's one of the key focuses. I think that's one of the reasons we've got WICA very much at the core of this commission. They've got a full picture of where we stand compared to everyone else in the region and nationally as well. So really important to make sure we got those skill levels. And again, take on board what you're saying. I think we know that because we're on the cross of the M62 and the M1, a lot of logistical jobs have always come to this. It makes perfect sense, but it's complementing that with high-skilled jobs as well. So I think we're all on the same page. We all know what needs to be done and where we want to be at. It's just making sure we get there, and like I said, getting those recommendations that we can quickly push on with. So thanks for your feedback.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just coming back on the energy service scheme, because I know it's just primarily for homeowners and private rented, and I wonder if at any point there's anything we can do for social housing tenants. I know that's not under our direct sort of control anymore, but I frequently come across residents who are in WDH properties primarily, where there's such a lack of insulation. You know, the heating's just evaporating out of the house, and coupled with that, they tend to be on the prepayment meters, which are higher tariffs, and these are people who are generally in a more vulnerable position, more financially precarious, and they're people who really, really need the help. So I would appreciate any work in the future if we could look at how we sort of direct some action for insulation to those residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson. And I think with Councillor Keith's comments as well, this is definitely one. I'm going to speak to Councillor Cummins because I know her team is involved massively in schemes just like this. So we've got a lot of different schemes, all funded from, you know, some of them are funded from us, some of them are funded from national and WICA, etc. So it's making sure, are we Are we helping everyone who needs the help? Are there any gaps? And that's something we can definitely work together on to make sure we've got that sorted. So thank you for your feedback.
Are there any further questions or brief comments to Councillor Graham? Thank you, Councillor Graham. Final Cabinet report this afternoon is for the Portfolio Holder for Resources and Property. Could Councillor Shaw please introduce his report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to pull out a couple of things from my report. First of all, it's a bit unusual, really, but not a lot of people know that the Coroner's Office is certainly under Wakefield's jurisdiction. And it's fantastic to see that with everything that they do throughout the area, that they took the time to save quite a bit of money to spend for children's Christmas with the Mid West Yorkshire Trust. I think that's fantastic what they did, and I'd like to thank them for it, and we certainly will do. I think the second thing, Mr. Mayor, is to say I welcome what everybody's welcome, but I think it's important that over the Christmas period, and certainly we're in Ward 2 that butts the Nottingley ward, and we didn't get certainly the second waste system. We were in exactly the same position, but I have to say, I live on a cul-de-sac and we all went out, we were all talking about it, but we still all thanked the fact that when it was snowing during the Christmas break, the dustbins that drivers were out there in the snow, really clearing the first dustbin. So, you know, a lot of people were really thankful. They weren't complaining, they were thankful. And I just wanted to really say that because it's important.
Yes, Les, that was exactly the point I was making. It was like, if you remember when the millennium came round, they were forecasting that planes would fall out the sky and all that, and disaster was going to happen. That's the point I was making. That was what people were saying to me, and it didn't happen. And I was basically saying thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Gert. It's appreciated. Would you like to continue?
That people were thanking. They were certainly thanking. I think they deserved it. And to be honest, when I looked at the roads, we've got a lot of side roads as well, Matthew. And
I'm sorry, Councillor Shaw, but I'm being instructed that I have to tell you to stick to your report and not deviate on somebody else's report.
I will stick to it. So I really thank them for doing that because I think it's really important. And with that, I'll move my report. Yeah, I'll do as I'm told. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions or brief comments on Councillor Shaw's report? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to ask Councillor Shaw to pass on my best or sincere thanks to the IT service department, and the team was excellent. They tried their best to turn the question around, and I just appreciate what they have done for members. Thank you.
Councillor Gert.
Yes, Les. Before I start, just like to say, when I first got elected, you were one of the first to welcome me in, and I've got a lot of respect for you, so please don't take anything I'm going to say personally. But I was a bit dismayed and shocked to read the Wakefield Express report about the lack of insurance on buildings across the district. And that apparently we've not had any insurance on certain buildings since October 2022. And we're at a risk. Back then it was 217.6 million if they all had to be rebuilt, and currently it's 370 million. Now, I'm going to guess that some of these buildings that aren't insured are derelicts, and I'm going to take a guess that one of them is the Kellingley Club. I don't know, it's a guess. And if that's the case, we're going to demolish the Kellingley Club, so, if it burns down, it saves us the fees for demolishing it, doesn't it? But what did particularly concern me, and I'd like some clarification on this, it includes some heritage buildings. And that's very, very worrying. You know, and I think back to, if you remember when Notre Dame caught fire and the devastation that was caused there, and donations were coming in from all across the world to rebuild that. You know, and as much as I like this building that we're in, you know, would donations come all across the world for Wakefield? I don't think it would. So the burden for rebuilding would fall on the Wakefield taxpayer, or we'd lose it. And while I'm on the subject of this building, I would guess that this is one of the heritage buildings. Do we know if this building's insured that we're in currently, and the town hall? It's very, very worrying. What is being done, because, you know, 2022, we're now in 2025 and we've still not got any insurance. What's going on?
For that question,
I just don't understand it. How could we get to this position?
Thank you for the question. Let the portfolio holder a chance to give a reply.
Yeah, thanks for that, Peter, because I know it's been discussed, obviously, in different parts of the council. Unfortunately, I can't comment on individual buildings because there's a commercially sensitive procurement process for all buildings taking place at this particular time, so I'm not going to comment on any specific sort of buildings, and I think that's really important. But what I would say is it's extremely important that we've got sufficient and appropriate insurance cover for the council estate. We've got, believe it or not, 1,700 assets across the estate, and they're highly diverse. You've pointed out they are highly diverse, and that's important. Insurance is a complicated marketplace at this particular time. So it's a very complex topic right across the insurance industry. We're working closely with our current insurance. I can assure everybody that that's what we're doing to make sure our cover is as comprehensive as it can be, and to put robust new arrangement in place for when our current contract ends at the end of this year. I know the audit committee is keeping a close eye on this, and so they should, and I know they are doing, and certainly this and other improvements on how we manage our estate will continue to be discussed there. That's the comment that I want to make.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very quick one from me. The council tax support scheme. Do residents without internet access have some way of filling this out at all? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's really important. One of the things that we're looking with council tax support scheme and all that is different ways of people passing on that information. So I can assure you that we're looking at it and we're going to make sure everybody who wants to be involved will be involved.
Any further questions to Councillor Shaw? Thank you very much indeed. That was the final Cabinet Member report. Before we move on to agenda item 8, we're going to have a brief recess, approximately 10 minutes. Welcome back. Agenda item 8 seeks approval of the changes to the Constitution. Is the report moved? Is the report seconded? Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I draw members' attention to page 42 and to sort of do a deep dive about what this report or proposal is about? So the agenda number item 2 said to authorize the Chief Legal Officer to make any consequential amendments to the Constitution further to these changes. Number 3, to authorize the Chief Finance Officer to make minor changes to the contract procedure rules to reflect any changes to the procurement regulations prior to the Act being implemented. So we have some issues here. Just to start off with, I am so sorry that, Caroline, you have not got a mention. You have worked so hard, and we are sorry to lose you in the next few weeks' time. But at least you are in Wakefield. So Caroline has worked so hard for this council as a Chief Finance Officer. But however, in the last 3 years' time, we're almost going to have 3 Chief Finance Officers. So tell me, what is that minor change? What is a minor change? Define that. And £370 million of insurance that is going to cost us. We have not even insured our own property. So procurement, we know that in the last few years, we have big problem, big issue, big style. So can we really think about our risk management issue, think about that auditor report that we have just got, is actually putting everything in red. So how can we actually give more right to what this proposal to be? At least the cabinet have to own up to something. At least members have been consulted. But I don't know, for this report, what has been consulted, what member has been asked to actually put their opinion forward. So let's think about how we should make decisions for the people of Wakefield. Especially, you're having so many big projects coming, city centre, regeneration, millions, multi-million pounds of money, and senior management members at the moment have conflict of interest. So Wakefield stands, you need to be made aware that what you are making a decision for is accountability, is transparency. So members, you need to think about how you can go back to your ward to answer how you make decisions in this chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey, thank you for that series of questions. Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Councillor Harvey. That's why you're sat here now. You've got a full report here on where everything's going. We're talking about some potential minor changes, obviously, as things come forward. And we always bring things like this so that everybody, certainly in this chamber, can read it, can digest it. You've had it a few days, and that's why it's important. You're voting on this particular thing. As far as the minor changes are concerned, there will be minor changes, and I'm sure there'll be consultation on some of those things anyway.
Any further questions to Councillor Shaw? Councillor Harvey?
Can I just ask, did any member has been informed about this report, about this change? Any members have been consulted on this change?
Not on the change, on this report. You're voting on this report, and this report is very specific on some of the changes, and they're highlighted. I'll stand corrected if I'm saying the incorrect things here, and that's what you're voting on. Yes, you've picked something up to say if there's some minor changes, then we're authorising certainly our finance people and our legal people to look at those minor changes. What would normally happen, and what certainly in my time as a councillor, which is quite a few years, if the officers deemed it was significant changes, there'd be discussion, but the minor changes, and that's what you're looking to do.
1 second, Councillor Harvey, I'll come back to you in a moment. Any further questions in relation to Councillor Sharp?
Yeah, I think what's been asked is to define an example of what a minor change would be. I think that would help. I think the monitoring officer needs to come in, because we have had some examples in the past where certain officers that are either here or no longer here have made and taken decisions upon themselves without consulting Cabinet, without bringing things to the fore. I think it's quite relevant, but it just needs to be asked in a certain way. So can it be defined what a minor change constitutes, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors. If I address 2.2 first of all, which is the consequential amendments, just for completeness. Consequential amendments is a delegation that I already have. It's included in here for completeness. It means going through the rest of the Constitution and making it all match up to the changes that are here today if those are approved. So that is exactly what it is. My process for that would be to do that on a delegated decision notice, which will be published to all members, and I would consult the portfolio holder before I did that. In relation to 2.3, which is the minor changes, the way that that is drafted is to reflect that those minor changes must be as a result of changes to regulations that come in between now and when the Procurement Act is scheduled to go live on the 24th of February, to make sure that if the rules need amending to reflect the law, then the rules can be amended to reflect the law. The law will always override the rules. So it is about changes to law between now and then.
So what has reflected then in the law that has permitted you to make these changes? What's happened that you've had to come to council with this report to make these changes? Can you explain that, please? Thank you.
So in relation to the changes to the standards regime, there has been no change to the law. This is a result of a standard review of the arrangements against best practice guidance issued by the Local Government Association. In relation to 2.3, it is the provisions of the Procurement Act that are scheduled to come into force on the 24th of February that has required our contract procedure rules to be updated to reflect the new legislation. As is common with much legislation at the moment, we get the Act and then we get a series of regulations that interpret the Act. So 2.3 is there in case there are any regulations passed between now and the 24th of February that means that these rules need to be subject to minor amendments.
I'll come back to you in a second, Councillor Harvey. Any further questions? Okay, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given the high turnover of the senior management team, and given the weakness, a significant weakness actually at the moment in the Council's financial resilience and also the management strategy, we're talking about over £500 million of budget of this council. So minor change, we need to know how the outgoing S151 will define minor, and then the incoming chief finance officer, how she or he will define minor. So this is too vague for taxpayers' money. There's no minors in multi-million pounds of council budget.
Councillor Shaw?
I think we've answered that significantly, and I suggest we move on.
Any further questions on this report? Okay. All in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? That is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 9 is the report which seeks approval of the recommendations for the changes to the polling district. Is this report moved, Councillor Shaw?
Move the report, Mr Mayor.
Is this report seconded? Are there any questions, first of all, in relation to this report? Councillor Keefe.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just looking through this now, and I represent a ward that is split by the white line on the Leeds Road, and some people walk to their elected, where they're nominated polling station via another one across the other side of the road. When they see the sign polling station, if they walked in, they say, oh no, this is for the other side of the road. So we've got a situation where we're now going to alter some of the roads and we're going to send them to another different polling station. My question is, Will there be any attempt to notify those people exactly of those changes, that particularly the ones that's going to change their polling stations? And will there be any funding available to those elected members that make sure that we can double underline to those people who are facing these changes that they understand them before the election comes?
Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because when we started this process, we've sent out numerous emails, we've sent out numerous bits of correspondence to everybody sat in this chamber about come along to meetings, make suggestions. We've looked at the boundary side of it. We waited until the new boundaries were drawn up. Then I know certainly the committee group were asking everybody, and you've certainly all received certain things because I've seen it, to come along to meetings. Then there were a number of sessions held where every ward could see exactly where the new polling stations were, or the fact that a lot of wards haven't had any changes. We've talked about the schools. A lot of the schools certainly wanted to pull out of this because it's disruptive, and the team have done a fantastic job. Certainly my ward, they've put a polling station somewhere where technically we wouldn't have liked it, but it's come out of a school and gone into that particular area. So I understand what you're saying, but it would have helped, certainly at this process, if we'd have known about that issue or any issue on there. So what I would say is it's a good report. Everybody's had the chance to look at it. We'll certainly look at individual things, Councillor, we certainly will. But I still recommend this thorough report.
Any further questions or comments, please? Thank you. Can I ask all those in favour of the report, please show. Against? Abstentions? That is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 10 is questions on notice, details of which are set out in the council agenda. There are 5 questions, and the first question received is from Councillor Harvey. Would Councillor Isherwood please give her reply to the question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Harvey, for your question. In Wakefield, we take all allegations of child abuse, including child sexual exploitation, very seriously. We recognise and understand the national context surrounding this issue, and we are never complacent in our practice. Since the inadequate Ofsted judgment in 2018, the Children's Service, supported by the wider Council and Partnership, has undergone a complete transformation. Members are well aware of the wide-ranging changes made to our children's system. Our approach to helping and protecting vulnerable children was scrutinised throughout the improvement journey by Ofsted and by our government-appointed Commissioner. Members are aware that our last full inspection of children's services produced a judgment of good with outstanding leadership, with a narrative that reflected on the tenacious, creative and effective approaches used to ensure that children are safe and have their needs met. Subsequent inspections have confirmed continued improvement. In Wakefield, we have a specialist children vulnerable to exploitation team which is co-located with the police. The team take a lead role in identifying, assessing and intervening with children who are vulnerable to this kind of abuse. The work is overseen by our Safeguarding Children Partnership. We continually carry out assurance activity in order to check the impact of our service. Wakefield's profile for this kind of abuse does not reflect the kinds of issues referred to in the national media. All members are invited to use the Connect Visit programme to request the visit to the CV service should they wish to seek more information and to see at first hand the work that is done. At this moment in time, we see no reason to carry out an inquiry.
Thank you for that response. The next bit I'm going to read out applies to all of these questions. So Council Procedure Rules entitle the questioner to 1 supplementary question, but it must arise directly out of the original question posed or the reply given. So in this particular instance, Councillor Harvey, you do have the opportunity for a supplementary question, but can you make sure it's focused on what's been discussed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first and foremost, can I congratulate Councillor Ishwood and her team for the last so many years of hard work to attend the children's service around for this council. But however, I was approached by a member of our community with the historic child abuse cases. And I just want to know whether you are aware of any actually happened before you took over, number one. Number two, if there are any of these cases, are we going to be able to revisit those cases and make sure we give justice to the victims that have suffered from this horrendous crime?
Before you answer, Councillor Isherwood, I'm going to do the same for everybody. It's one supplementary question. So which one would you like, Councillor Isherwood, to answer? Your first one or the second one?
Second one.
Thank you.
Yes, before I took on this role, Councillor Harvey, I was actually Chair of Scrutiny, and we did actually do a great deal of work following the report from Alexis J. About child abuse, and during that scrutiny we never found any significant indication that there was child abuse occurring. If this person does feel that they have something to report, it is extremely important that they do so, and I would suggest they do it through the CV that I've already mentioned at Havertop Police Station. If you want any more information, please do contact me, because it's very important that we support people. Okay.
Ahmed.
Appropriate in the council chamber that if we're bringing up, and it's not the person who raised the question, if there is, and I think it's a legal issue here, if somebody's got a child protection issue or a child CSE case and they're raising it in the council chamber, it's the wrong place to be raising it. It needs to be raised with the police or social services. It does not need to come in the council chamber, because we're creating whatever we want to create for certain clicks or publicity. Is unacceptable, and this is one of you two. Somebody should have spoken up about this. Totally unacceptable. There's about 3 or 4 teachers in this council chamber. Every single one of you has passed a DBS check. You know the reporting procedure of CSE. Every single person knows, and if you don't know, you need to go and learn it. It's totally unacceptable, and that's. I'm going to raise that as a point of order. If it's not a point of order, it still stands, because it's unacceptable, and the person needs to raise it with the police or the child. This is the wrong place to raise it.
Thank you for that. I think on the basis, just a second, I think on the basis that an individual case wasn't raised, it was a general inquiry around a case, I think that's the reason why it was allowed. I do take on board your comment very seriously, though. Thank you. You were one question, and one question's been asked. So question 2 is also a question received from Councillor Harvey to Councillor Morley. Would you like to reply to the question?
I think we've talked a lot about gritting in my report, Mr Mayor, but just to add to what Councillor Harvey is saying regarding grit bins, grit boxes, I have said we will be doing a full review of the winter service. We will be looking at the use of grit boxes and the locations of them, but when it comes down to the heavy snow weather, it's very, very hard to keep replenishing them, because we do find that members of the public use them sometimes for their own driveways and one thing or another, so it is hard to keep them fully replenished all the time. She does make 2 important, though, points that we will be looking into. That is the relationship between the parish councils and the district councils when it comes to grit boxes. There may be some historic service level agreements where we would have filled them on behalf of the parish councils maybe, and they may have finished. When it comes to parish councils, we do support parish councils by donating grit, whether it be just loosely or in sacks or wherever. So that is something we need to look into further. You do make a very valuable point as well on new estates. We found this in our ward, and I think elsewhere, where developers are putting grit boxes in, but there's nobody responsible for them after that. Who are then responsible? Is it the management company that looks after the estate, or are they entering some sort of agreement with us? So them factors will be picked up under the review.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor Harvey, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Matthew, for that. So we have some more grit bins in the past around the villages in West Breton, for example, but because over the years there have been deteriorated. So we'd like to know whether the council, those are the council, district council provided green bins. Are we going to replace them or just not going to be able to, you know, put them back to where their position is?
We have lost them in the past. My understanding of this is once we agree the locations, and it goes back to 2010, I mentioned before when Denise was in charge of highways, we stopped putting new grip bins in new locations unless it was paid for by a third party and looked after. If then we got damaged, we would replace, but we wouldn't put in any new. So if they have been damaged in the last few years, it may be a case of looking to replace them. But in case of that, we will be looking at all locations. So where we feel we do have them, even if there may not be one there, we'll still look to see if that is an appropriate location for them.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. The third question is received from Councillor Gert, and the question is to Councillor Cummings. Would you please like to present your reply?
Yeah, thank you. As you can see, the question is in 4 parts, so I'll answer each part as they appear in the council agenda. And in response to the first part, a total in excess of 1.8 million was remaining at district level as of October 2024. And as published in the December Cabinet report, wards had varying levels of budget remaining, with only one ward holding a zero balance. 15 wards held more than their annual allowance of 50,000, with 9 of those wards holding balances in excess of 100,000. 20 wards had their balances removed to create an overall budget of £1.838 million, which was reallocated for pipeline projects, which we've been informed about, and a further allocation of £37,000. In response to the second part of the question, no wards have been allowed to keep their funds. The 1.8 million budget was reallocated to cover pipeline projects and a new allocation of £37. As you said in your preamble to the questions, in September last year, all elected members were asked to provide details of their pipeline projects, and this came to a total value of just in excess of £1 million. And that has been ring-fenced against those specific projects. In answer to the third part of your question, yes, all wards have got £37,000. And in answer to the final part of the question, where is the money gone? I hope I've tried to outline and explain where the money has gone, but it is all in the December 24 Council report, and it will be reviewed again in September this year.
Councillor Gert, you do have a supplementary question, but for clarity, I consider this question relates to neighbourhood improvement funds and capital budgets, so your supplementary question must relate to that.
I'd have a comment, but I haven't got a question, so am I allowed to say it? No.
The fourth question is received from Councillor Speak. Councillor Hemingway, would you like to reply to the question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, in terms of Councillor Speak's question, I can confirm that the Ferrybridge Park refurbishment project is still planned for delivery during the 25-26 financial year. 96,000 has been made available from Section 106 monies, and I'm informed that the expiry date for these funds is not for a significant period of time and not until August 2032. So I can give you some assurances on that point quite clearly that the project will be started and completed well in advance of the expiry of those funds. Further partial funding will be made available from the Green Space and Countryside Improvement Plan, and officers tell me that between the sources of funding, a high quality scheme can be delivered with the funding envelope that's available. I think Councillor Cummings has already outlined in quite some detail about the capital funds. I don't intend to answer that question again. In terms of plans and timescales, Ward 9 is one of a number of wards with park improvements due for the coming financial year. They're currently being developed and will be shared for consultation with ward members as soon as they're available, and we'll let you know the timescales following that consultation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hemingway. Councillor Speak, you do have a supplementary question. For clarity, I consider the question relates to the refurbishment of Ferrybridge Park, so your supplementary question should relate to that topic. Thank you. The last question, question 5, is received from Councillor Sharp. Councillor Appleyard, would you like to reply to the question?
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, for your questions. So, the cost of the stolen pieces of art, the full cost was £196,966. It's important to point out this includes the artist's fee, research and development time, design time, fabrication and delivery of the sculptures, the plinths, and an engagement event. Additionally, just to point out that obviously this was funded by DCMS, Department of Culture, Media and Sport. You asked whether they were insured. All the artworks making up the Wakefield City Centre sculpture trail are insured, and we are progressing a claim to receive monies for the loss. There was CCTV of the crime, but unfortunately the police weren't able to identify the perpetrators. They were wearing hoods and their identity was concealed. We understand that the police are not investigating the matter any further because there's no suspects identified. Each site was assessed for its suitability as a location for a city centre sculpture trail. Needless to say, it's impossible to totally mitigate against kind of crime, damage, theft, etc. But Wakefield 1 wasn't considered a risky site, namely for it's a public building, there's people going in, out all the time. There was external CCTV covering the area, and you've got 2 residential blocks looking over the area as well. It's worthwhile pointing out that obviously the installation was in 2014, and this was the first time that obviously we've received any kind of crime associated with that. You quite rightly point out that Wakefield District is renowned for sculpture. We're not planning on replacing the sculptures outside Wakefield 1 from the council's own collection. We are talking with the original artist, looking at different options in terms of having the artwork produced again, but we're also considering kind of different locations to mitigate any kind of further risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleyard. Councillor Sharp, you do have the opportunity to raise a supplementary question. For clarity, I consider that this question relates to the theft of public arts at Wakefield 1, and your supplementary question should relate to that topic.
Yeah, so just in recent light of basically the council blunders and the budget increases that are incoming in the next couple of months, do you think that this incident really serves as a metaphor for you hemorrhaging money and assets, literally, that's happening right under your nose?
No, I don't think that's the case at all.
Thank you. The final agenda item is to deal with any motions proposed by members. There are 2 motions before council today. No speeches, including the moving and seconding of this motion, may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Cummings, Councillor Cummings, would you please move your motion to council?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought this resolution today to highlight an issue that affects all our communities: violence against women and girls. This is not just a women's issue, it's a society issue that impacts us all, and it's our collective responsibility to address it with urgency and compassion. The harm caused to victims and society by violence against women and girls in all its forms is immeasurable. Harassment, stalking, rape, sexual assault, murder, honour-based abuse and coercive control. Whilst men and boys also suffer from many of these forms of abuse, they disproportionately affect women. Every day we listen to the radio and we watch the TV. We see and hear of yet another incident that shocks us. To name a few: Sarah Everard, abducted and killed whilst walking home. Gracie Spinks, killed by an obsessive stalker. The 3 young girls, Elsie, Alice and Bibi, in Southport, whilst attending a summer holiday dance class. And sadly, in our own community, Abby Fisher was murdered by her husband whilst her baby slept. Moving this resolution will help strengthen our commitment to eradicating violence against women and girls in our communities. We've made strides in recent years, but the statistics remind us that there is still much work to be done. Recent reports suggest that one in 3 women will experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. This is not acceptable. We must take action now to change this narrative. This resolution aims to enhance support services for survivors, increase awareness, introduce education programmes for healthy relationships and foster partnerships with local organisations dedicated to this cause. By investing in prevention and support, we can create a safer environment for all women and girls in our communities. We must ensure that every individual feels safe and empowered to speak out against violence. Moreover, this resolution will not only benefit women and girls, but will strengthen our communities as a whole. When we support the most vulnerable amongst us, we create a culture of respect and equality that uplifts everyone. I urge each and every one of you to consider the impact of your vote today. By supporting this resolution, you are taking a stand against violence and sending a clear message that our communities will not tolerate this behaviour. Together we can foster a culture of respect, safety and empowerment for all individuals, regardless of race or gender. Let us unite in our commitment to end violence against women and girls. Let's be the leaders who champion change. Let's advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. I ask for your support in moving this resolution forward so we can take action towards a future where every woman and girl can live free from fear and violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Is the motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Do you wish to formally speak now or reserve your right to speak later in the debate?
I'll speak now. That's right. I second Councillor Cummings' motion on committing to end violence against women and girls. This is not, as Councillor Cummings said, this is not just a women's issue. It's a human rights issue, it's a societal issue, and a moral issue that demands our collective attention, action, and commitment. Violence against women and girls is extensive. It affects individuals, families, and all our communities. From physical abuse to emotional torment, from street harassment to child marriages, this violence takes many forms. It is present in every corner of our country, regardless of age, culture, or geographic location. Yet the reality remains that women and girls are disproportionately affected, often suffering in silence due to fear and shame. The statistics are both worrying and heartbreaking, and as the motion states, an estimated 1 in 4 women experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. In some areas, the numbers are even higher. Every day, women are subjected to abuse in their homes, on the streets, at the workplace, and in the very place they are supposed to feel safe. I'm pleased to see work on a national level has begun on this as well. I'm proud that our new government has already taken huge steps to transform the police in response to these crimes, including announcing Redeem's Law, which will place domestic abuse specialists in 999 control rooms, and the rollout of the new domestic abuse protection orders. They've also announced positive steps around new measures to tackle spiking, stalking, and other crimes which disproportionately affect women. These crimes happen that I talk about all the time with friends of mine who go out at the weekends, and I've constantly been told about friends who've been spiked, followed, or made to feel uncomfortable on nights out. I'm also proud of the work of this council, and I'm pleased that this motion will only strengthen the work we do. However, the work cannot be done on its own. It requires the involvement of our government, this council, partner organisations, and every single one of us. It requires the engagement of men as allies working alongside women to create a safer and more equitable Wakefield. I am proud to be a white ribbon champion alongside the Chief Executive and the Deputy Leader. Men have a crucial role in changing the narratives around power and control and helping to dismantle the systems that enable violence. Tackling violence against women and girls is not just about protecting them from harm. It is about upholding their rights to live free from fear, to thrive, and to contribute to society on equal terms. It is a fight for justice, dignity, and human rights. It is everyone's responsibility to create a world in which women and girls can live without fear of violence.
And we have the power to create that world. We must act with urgency, determination and compassion. And I'm proud that Wakefield Labour Group are at the forefront of this. Together we can ensure that the future is one where every woman and girl is safe, valued and free. I hope that elected members today from across this chamber will back this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that speeches must be directed to the motion under discussion or to a personal explanation or a point of order. And the definition of points of order and personal explanations can be found on page 7. Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
So I'm just going to keep this very short. I think you'll find that everybody will probably support the motion. And I know that Councillor Cummins has raised this issue over her time in the council. I remember going on with the badges and handing it out to elected councillors. So I know that's an issue that you've dealt with in the past. And I think all of us would support this motion and hope that, I would hope that we wouldn't be speaking about this issue, but we are. And that violence continues not in this country but around the world as well. And it's sad to see that. But if this motion helps deliver outcomes for you, then it seems like the right thing to do. So obviously I'd be supporting it as well. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the two councillors proposed and seconded this very strong motion, powerful. My little observation is on page 3. Here it says this council welcomes Labour's commitment to have violence against women. I think it should be the full council across all parties to support this motion. So I think that wording should be changed, this council instead of Labour. And the action point we had, the last one, report to the Corporate and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee within 12 months. Can we do better than 12 months? I think, and the case of women's abuse affect the family, affect the whole community, and 12 months, and you have give yourself too long a time to actually report back to have a real impact and effectiveness of action. So would you please consider to maybe amend it? I'm so sorry I have not have a proper amendment because it should not need to be amended. But this 12 months is too long to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, no one disagrees with this motion, Maureen. No, there's no debate to be had. We're all going to support it. I'm just a bit confused because isn't this your job anyway? Shouldn't you be doing this anyway? I took the liberty of getting your job description and it says area development and community cohesion. That is highlighted in this motion. Community safety, again, highlighted in this motion. Domestic abuse, modern slavery is an area that you look after. Asylum seekers and refugees. Housing excluding strategic housing functions but including homelessness reduction. So I can imagine that women that are put into domestic violence and fleeing domestic violence are put in a situation of homelessness. Yeah, I'm just a bit confused. No one disagrees with the sentiment of this. Shouldn't you just be getting on and doing the job that you have been paid to do to run this portfolio, which includes all of this? We've never been asked to support a champion. I would support a champion in this motion for this particular motion, but that's what Councillor Cummins is there to do. She's there to appoint someone that she feels is going to make a difference to this type of work. You know, we've never been asked to come to council to approve Councillor Yubi for being the cycling champion for the district. Like, it's just a bit of a why.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Mel Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this motion, Maureen and Daniel. People who know me know that 27 years ago my very good friend was shot and murdered by her partner in Castleford. And I'm sure she'd want me to speak on this motion. There were red flags with Vicky throughout her relationship with the murderer. I won't say his name. He was reported to the police and his managers. And fast forward this many years, you would have thought that red flags would be acted upon, but unfortunately for Gracie Spink and Sarah Everard, they weren't. So I will be supporting this motion, and I thank you for bringing it.
Councillor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's probably 2 years ago that Councillor Sharp and I raised this as a motion to the council after we'd been to meet the West Yorkshire Police 2 years ago. We received numerous assurances then that things were going to improve and there was new strategies available. Yet we still see the exploitation and attacks. And it's highlighted by what's on page 4 at the top of it there, where 37% happened between 2018, 19 and 22 and 23. What that highlights is that it means that when you're in lockdown or when people are together, that violence or the potential of that violence increases. It's underlined by anybody who's drilled down into this and know that things happen. Arguments happen on holidays, it happens at Christmas, it happens at whenever couples are a long time together and certain people have a problem. Whether it's a drink problem, whether it's a drugs problem, whether it's society's problem and an alteration in different acceptance levels of tolerating each other, I don't know. But what we must do is not just let this drop down till the next time we put a motion in before council and talk about it. What we must do is we must look at the mental health issues that's knocking on from this, and we must look in terms of putting people in there, be it champions or be it whatever, but it must be meaningful interventions. But most importantly, what we've got to make sure is that we make sure that there's funding available to stop this abhorrence. I support the motion.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fully supporting the motion today, and obviously I think everybody in this chamber will do the same, and of course it will become council policy after, I hope, the vote has been taken. Can I just advise members today that the issue of domestic abuse in relation to the effects on health, and the health is well promoted, Maureen, in your motion today, that it is our intention to discuss this issue, and of course we will work across boundaries with the portfolio holder or deputy of the position between ourselves and yourself, and probably corporate resources as well. So the intention is to have a deep dive into this, because it is a curse on the society that has this percentage of people suffering through this horrible, horrible domestic abuse. And I'm going to say something about our little friend from the press over there. I haven't seen your pencil moving too much, but could I just ask, on behalf of council, this really is an important item that we should be focusing through our press, through our radio, local radio stations, and get the message out there that this Wakefield Council is taking this matter seriously, and we will do all that we can with the new Labour government bringing in new laws to support people in this situation and strengthen the law against the perpetrators. So I'd love to see your pen going, but maybe you're recording it, and do forgive me if you are. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gert.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Of course, we're going to support this motion as well. Of course we are. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I've got 2 granddaughters, and I've witnessed domestic violence in my own family. I've witnessed it firsthand. So, of course, we're going to support this motion. But my worry is that when we're focusing on violence against women and girls, we're forgetting that domestic violence doesn't just happen to those. We've recently had a case in our ward, and you might have seen it. She's been dubbed the low cross strangler, and that was a woman against a woman. And when I was working, and I had a team member who was suffering domestic violence, that was a man, and it was his wife committing the violence. And getting him help was nigh on impossible, simply because he was a man. So I accept that violence against women and girls is in the majority, but we mustn't forget those that are in the minority. It could be man against man, woman against woman, woman against man. And if they come forward, they need to be getting the equal amount of help. So I hope that the champion is going to bear that in mind. And if a man comes forward and says, I'm getting beaten up by my partner, is going to get the same support as a girl would. That's just the point I'd like to make.
Thank you, Councillor Gertz. Councillor Farmer?
Yeah, just a quick one. Just to say that obviously I'll be supporting the motion. As a father of a 19-year-old daughter, I think it's about time that the perpetrators got some decent sentences. And while they don't get any sentences, these mamby-pamby, wishy-washy sentences they get, they'll carry on doing what they're doing. We all know what happened last week. There was no sentence on this earth, apart from capital punishment, that he should have had. I'm sorry, but to me, what he did last week was an absolute disgrace, more than a disgrace. So there's no sentence for him. These perpetrators, these men, they're not men. Some of them are, you know, talking about women as well. But these men, these aren't men. These are cowards. That's exactly what they are. And it's about time, whether it's the Labour government or the Conservative government or whatever government, the punishment should fit the crime. And as it stands now, it doesn't, because they're getting away with absolute carnage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Farmer. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I'm going to support the motion. It is really important. I think your timeline that you've got at the bottom for 12 months is realistic, given that once it's a massive step to get somebody suffering from domestic abuse, let it be violence or coercive and controlling behaviour, to get them through the doors at the police station in the first instance. Most victims will retract their statements at that point. They'll put a statement in, something will happen, and they'll retract it. So you have to keep going back and going back. So I think the 12-month timeline to get some guidance and to see how it is working is really good. I'm really pleased to see that you're doing it in schools. Kids really need to know that coercive, controlling, bullying behaviour matters no matter what age you are, because you're going to grow up into a young adult, and they need to know. But I also want to make the point that there's historic abuse as well, and historic abuse can and needs to be reported, and that is aimed back at the children that are in the families of the domestic abuse. You can report that to the NSPCC, and that can be brought forward and can be done. So I support this, Maureen, and Daniel, thank you for fetching it to Council today.
Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also in support of this motion. I have been a founder member of setting up Women of the World Festival in Rotherham, and I've been working on that for 3 years, and I've spent time with incredible people like Mina Smallman, whose daughters were unfortunately murdered in London. It's harrowing what is happening and keeps happening, and I'm in absolute support that this happens as an education programme. It is about raising awareness. It's about full community coming together to identify what is happening in our community so that people have confidence to be able to go to the police. So I'm 100% in support of this motion.
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you. I totally 100% support the motion, and I support many of the comments that were made, and I particularly hope that what I'm about to say complements what Councillor Pritchard and Councillor Gertz said in regards to, there's a wider issue here, and I think one of the things that needs to be emphasised is that violence isn't always physical, it can be psychological. I know some of my friends, unfortunately, went through more of a psychological sort of situation where they would come home one day and their car was just changed by, their partners and husbands and things like that, and it was just, their lives were taken over. And when they eventually got that strength to sort of like break out of that situation, the support wasn't necessarily there either. They needed some legal support and it wasn't there. You know, and I think that there's so much that needs to be moved on this. And sometimes we might have the laws in place in the past at the House of Commons and stuff, but the reality on the ground is it doesn't always filter through, and that's why these things have always got to be raised and kept being brought up, and more things need to be done, especially at a local level. And so, yeah, that was just my contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Finally on my list, unless anybody else wishes to come forward, is Councillor Ferguson.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi. I support the motion to Maureen, and I'd just like to draw attention to where we look for reasons for how and why domestic abuse happens. And I think it's important that we don't always focus on individual people and the reasons why domestic abuse is perpetrated. We tend to look for individual reasons around drink and how that triggers domestic abuse. We tend to look at inability to handle anger. A person needs, an individual person might need anger management treatment. We tend to look for psychological reasons, and in actual fact, in most cases of domestic abuse, it happens because society tolerates it, because we've allowed it to happen. And when a person says, argues, you know, that they can't control the temper, or it's to do with drink, or that kind of thing, well, that person manages to control their behaviour when they're angry with the boss at work. They don't lose the temper then, do they? But they lose the temper and get away with domestic abuse in the privacy of the family home because they can, because society has tolerated it and covered it up. So I think we need to be careful not to look for individual reasons. We need to manage the unacceptable face of domestic abuse as a societal issue, and not, I can't manage my temper, I can't manage my drink. It happens in the home. It doesn't happen in other places, so it can be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Any further members wishing to speak? No, thank you. Councillor Cummings, you have the right to reply if you wish. In exercising your right to reply, may I remind you that no new matter can be introduced.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to address some of the comments that have been made, and I thank Nadeem for his words. Yes, I brought this issue to this chamber on innumerable occasions, and I've reported on this issue in my cabinet report. Councillor Harvey, yeah, maybe 12 months is too long, but as you know, you will know, I do report on this quite regularly. Through the campaigns that we're running and the training that we're doing, but I'll certainly look at that one. I'm really sorry that Councillor Sharp is confused about me bringing it today, as though I thought about it last week. I chair the Community Safety Partnership, and their main priority is domestic abuse. I chair the Domestic Abuse Management Board, and I also chair the Domestic Homicide Review Board. And I oversee domestic homicide reviews as well. And I do actually regularly report. So it isn't something that I thought about last week while sat at home watching the television. So I'm really sorry that you're confused about that. And Charlie, you're right, funding is we survive on funny money. I mean, we took a paper through Cabinet in December about the Breakthrough Project, and we're looking for a partner to work with our service to actually deliver some of the support that we can't deliver now, and it is perpetrator support. And I take on board everything that you said, Nick, and you know, we'd want to hang them up somewhere, wouldn't we? And when it is that they do such horrific crimes, particularly to children. Peter, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you've had it in your family. You will know how tragic it can be. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I know what it's like. I can speak from the heart about what is required for people who suffer domestic abuse. I agree with something that you said there, Councillor Harvey, as well. It's not just Labour. I know that previous governments have brought this to the forefront, and we've had the Commissioner for Domestic Abuse, and long may it continue. I don't think I have much more to say other than, you know, I will report regularly on what we're doing around violence against women and girls, but I do understand that, you know, there are men who suffer domestic abuse, more so coming forward now. 87% of our district, it's women, 13% it's men. But we do look after the men. I just want to reassure people that we don't have specific refuge accommodation for men, but we do have accommodation for men, and more men are coming forward to actually report that to us, and we are helping and supporting them. It is down to funding, and that's why we took the report in December to actually highlight the fact that we needed help and support, and hopefully once we've just started on that journey, and I will report on that as that journey progresses. But it's a small step, and I wanted to bring this here today just to highlight that there are so many people, women particularly, and young children who are suffering at the hands of perpetrators. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to speak.
So we now move to vote. Can I ask that all those in favour of this motion please show? Anybody against the motion? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Farmer, would you like to move your... And in doing so, Councillor Farmer, you have 5 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well. The cavalry arrived, haven't they? The dream team. All the gear, no idea, and Rachel from accounts. But the simple fact is it's not funny. It's your government and it's not funny. John Dockery, you won't know him, was a veteran, and his wife were huddled together relying on a stranger's generosity to keep warm. How many up and down the country in our wards are suffering from Rachel's fuel allowance or removal of the fuel allowance? She was a shadow chancellor for many, many years with Rachel. She took loads and loads of money from fuel allowances, and other cabinet members have taken fuel allowances. There's many, many broken promises. You campaigned on students who would be better off under Labour. You removed the student grant. WASPy women. Yes, you campaigned for that, didn't you? Justice for WASPy women. No justice for them. The pensioners we've talked about. You've shafted all the pensioners. Farmers. Not me, but farmers. You've turned your back on all them as well, haven't you? Hospices. Charities, all struggling now as a result of her budget. The government borrowing is the highest level for the December month for 4 years. The private sector jobs have been falling in January at the fastest pace since 2009, excluding the pandemic. And of course, you were in government in 2009, weren't you? The insolvency specialist, Bregan Trainer, say an unprecedented 50% rise in businesses in critical financial distress as a result of your budget. And now, Rachel's going soft on non-DOMs, isn't she? Bless her. Investment Migration Advisors Henley and Partners says that 10,000 millionaires have left the UK in 2024, a 157% increase on the previous year. They're the ones that put the money into the country, create jobs, and now Rachel's getting a large percentage of nothing, which is nothing. But now she's come back she hosted the Wall Street Journal. We have been listening to the concerns that have been raised by the non-DOM community. At the World Economic Forum in Davos on non-DOM, changes will be made to the upcoming legislation to increase the generosity of a facility to help non-DOMs repatriate funds to the UK. She didn't care about our pensioners, did she? No, she didn't. The black hole, is it 22 billion, is it 40 billion? What is it? What is it? Didn't she know? Did she not prepare for government? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. That's exactly what she's done. I'm not an economist, although it does say on my CV I'm an economist. I'm also been the governor of the Bank of England for 5 years, and I've been the England football manager for 10 years. How can you possibly do a CV and lie? And how can your Prime Minister think that's acceptable? Certainly not acceptable. But of course, Rachel said her two priorities, growth and get rid of public waste. That's the two priorities. The growth in the first quarter was 0.7 and then 0.5 in the second quarter. And then you took over and it became 0.1. In the last 3 months, you've had minus 0.1, minus 0.1 and 0.1. That's not growth. And she talks about public waste. We're going to get rid of public waste. Just before the budget, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport spent £594 each on 2 folders, which accumulates to just short of £1,200 on 2 folders. Obviously, it's not a waste of public money, that, but it surely is. And then, of course, we've got Angela, haven't we? £68,000 on a tax-funded photographer. Unbelievable, that, isn't it? And Rach thinks that's all right, does Rachel? That's good. If that photographer can make her look good, I might employ myself to make me look like Brad Pitt, eh? But the thing about it's a complete waste of public money. And now she talks about positivity like Donald Trump. You can't believe that, can you? Yeah, Donald Trump's hit the ground running. Your government's just hit the ground. But throughout the
30 seconds.
How many? All I've got, 30 seconds. Vote for change. Vote for change. All went out, didn't tell us what change was. We didn't have a clue what change was. We do now. And just for clarification, Jack, your manifesto, a couple of council meetings ago, you talked about manifestos in the Conservative manifesto. I didn't read that. I didn't read yours neither. I'd rather read the Beano, because it's just a pack of absolute lies that are just being proved out now. But Rachel said, hasn't she, after the budget, the slate is clear and it's all on us.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to speak now, formally speak now, or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll just speak now because obviously we know that everybody will have their responses ready. So in supporting the motion, I'd just like to draw attention to the fact that the Labour, I actually read the manifesto, Labour one, the one with change written on the front, nice on there, and there was 2 things that I noted, and I won't give my opinions on them, but but there were VAT on private schools and the non-dom tax. There were the things that stood out, and I think quite a lot of people generally supported those, and it looks like number 2's going down the pan very quickly, and number 1 looks like probably might not get done as well, or it will get done and probably withdrawn at another point, depending on the impact. And what it showed was, despite having access to what's known as the books, the financial treasury reports, and access to all the civil servants, it appeared that either Rachel Reeves or Keir Starmer, all the people involved, and you can say the same thing about the Conservatives when they came into power following Gordon Brown, but whether I agreed with it or you agreed with it, Cameron was clear on what they were going to do, and it was austerity. And everybody, we had loads of videos of me getting recorded and people saying so-and-so supported austerity, but it was clear. He was recorded, it was done, and he followed that through. Whether it was the right choice or wrong choice, we've seen actually ended up what it ended up showing in the economy, and I think it was wrong. But none of you lot will stand up and say that some of the choices that the Labour Party is making today, which will impact you as local councillors in 2026, and none of the MPs care because they've comfortably sat there 5 years. The same choices the Conservatives were making that we didn't agree with as well. We've sat there, spoken about it a number of times, but I would stand up and say that when something's wrong, it's wrong, and I said that to some of them in front of their face. But at that time, the decision seemed to be democratic. Nothing was on the pot. All these things that are coming out now, none of them were on the Labour manifesto. And it would have been a clear thing to actually not even write a manifesto and say at the beginning, we don't know the state of the finances. And for that reason, we might have to raise taxes, we might have to do this. And it's just coming through now, and I think you can correct me on the numbers. By your own numbers, the workforce regulations will cost businesses an additional £5 billion. £5 billion, and those regulations, and you might probably think, well, that's good. For some of the big companies, none of them will get touched by this. It's the smaller end companies that will be impacted, the ones that, you know, the ones that are in Wakefield now, employing people. The big companies, we will not even touch them. And my understanding is from the current budget, it's costing Wakefield Council around £1 million as well, the national insurance increases. And if I'm wrong, then correct me. So what I'm trying to say is that I know that we've got political positions to preserve, and, you know, some of you will be on the candidates list, etc. on there. I am as well. But, you know, those things, you know, I'm not bothered. You know, I'll be honest with you, because when we were raised by our elders, you speak what you want, and if someone's got a problem with it, they'll tell you in front of your face. That's the way I've grown up, and that's the way I'll stay. If the Conservatives are wrong, they were wrong on austerity. Record that. You won't record it, though, but, you know, they were wrong, and it's been proven it's been wrong, because the deficit didn't go down, did it? It didn't go down. So the course that Labour's taking in the 5 years, some of you won't be here to see the consequences because you'll lose in the next election. And no MP, the Wakefield ones, won't give monkeys that you've lost your seat. They won't care. All they'll be worried about is them 500 leaflets that they dropped off for you on Sunday in 5 years' time won't get delivered because they'll need somebody else to deliver those leaflets. And we know, because they've done the same to us. We know they don't care. And that's the reality, because you as councillors and us as councillors have to suffer the consequences of decisions made in London, and you're probably realising now that none of them are picking the phones up or replying to your emails anymore because they don't care. And when they've done their damage, and some of you have lost your seats, and some of you, you know, some of you are, I would say most of you are good people, you'll see the consequences of that, because we've seen them, we've gone through it, and now it's your turn.
You have 30 seconds left. No. Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Does any... Don't all shout at once, but does any member wish to speak on this motion? And may I remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion or to a personal explanation or a point of order. So, just let me write some names down before we start. Councillor Gert.
Yes, thank you. I agree with most of what's been said. And I think if everybody in this chamber was going to be honest, they'd say they agree as well. Because I don't think any of us agree with the winter fuel allowance being taken away from pensioners. You know, that's just one example. But my issue with this motion is it's not calling for those decisions to be reversed. It's calling for the Chancellor of the Exchequer to be sacked. And I'm not an economist, but I do remember the disaster that was the Liz Truss government, and how short that lasted, and in effect the Chancellor of the Exchequer got sacked, didn't they, along with the Prime Minister. And how well did that work out? If this motion was to call for us to write to them and say, can you reverse some of these decisions that you've made, then I would wholeheartedly support it. But because you're asking for the Chancellor to be sacked, I'm not sure that's in the best interest of the country. So it's for that reason I can't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gert. Councillor Hemingway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to oppose this motion, obviously. It smacks of desperate political opportunism. I think we all enjoy the fact Councillor Farmer's found his voice in this chamber after many years. Apart from the hint of misogyny there against certain Labour front benches, there's no need for that, Nick. But it's quite something to talk about economic incompetence when Liz Truss crashed the economy to the tune of 30-40 billion, as we've heard. We're barely 6 months from the Tories leaving government, and what you're doing with this is presenting everything as sweetness and light and passing all the blame for the current problems onto an administration that's been in power for 6 months. 14 years of disastrous failed economic experiments, you're now passing it on to Labour. It's like a football team making a substitute when they're 3-0 down and then blaming the substitute for the problems that the team have got on the pitch. It just makes no sense. I mean, there's some absolutely outrageous claims in this motion. I want to cover one which you haven't actually alluded to in your comments, but it's written down there, about pay rises for workers, as if somehow that's an appalling thing, and that our dastardly trade union masters have demanded that we pay workers, that the train drivers all this money. And the trade drivers union, the RMT, aren't even affiliated to the Labour Party, and they haven't been for 21 years. And they just happen to be a well-organised union able to bargain effectively for their members. And I, for one, support pay rises for workers in a cost of living crisis. And you talk about millionaires creating wealth, but it's actually the workers of this country that fundamentally create significant wealth here. There's no coincidence as well that the record strikes we saw under the Conservatives that brought the NHS almost to its knees were because you weren't negotiating proper fair pay deals with workers. That's stopped now. Doctors and nurses are seeing patients. There's more appointments available for that reason. So settling the pay disputes wasn't just about paying the workers. It was about improving and sorting out public services, and that's what Labour's done. But the attitude towards not supporting pay rises from the Conservatives, that's one of the reasons why there was a record-breaking Parliament, one of the records that the Conservatives broke. Living standards were worse at the end of the Parliament than they were at the start of it. That's never happened before. Absolutely appalling. It just shows the complete incompetence of the Conservatives. And the only people that got richer were billionaires who saw their wealth treble under the Conservatives. That's the people that they governed for. Now, there's no doubt that the economic situation facing the Chancellor is difficult, and that's both in terms of state finances, the wider economy. But I don't know how you have the cheek to try and pin that on a Labour Chancellor within 6 months of them taking office. This is a deeper malaise that started under the Conservatives, and Councillor Ahmed's mentioned austerity. Well, under their watch, the UK economy grew by 0.7% a year on average since 2010. There were 2 recessions in that period. Productivity flatlined. They were one of the few governments of a G7 major economy to try austerity to cut their way out of an economic crisis, which was accompanied with an insane failure to invest in major infrastructure while interest rates were at record lows. We're going to pay the price of that for years to come. We're miles behind our competitors. It was a wasted decade under the Conservatives, and as Nadeem, in fairness, acknowledged, it still didn't deal with the fundamental issue that austerity was supposed to sort out the national debt and deficit, and the national debt is still 35% higher than it was when the Conservatives took office. It's 95% of GDP now, according to the IFS. So austerity wasted public services, caused untold hardship, and didn't actually do what it intended to do at the outset. We've had 4 electoral terms of the Conservatives. More Prime Ministers, Chancellors they can shake a stick at. So I understand why you expect other parties to have the same sort of standard and length of term of office. But we don't judge our leaders by the lifespan of a lettuce. We judge them by what they're going to do over the life cycle of this Parliament and what they're elected to do. And it's more likely, from my point of view, as Councillor Gertz just said, to cause instability if you're constantly flip-flopping, as the Conservatives did, sometimes 7, 8 different ministers holding the same office within a short span of time. You had 1922 coups undermining the leader and the confidence in the economy and the government. Labour's maintaining a steady course. Yes, it's painful. Yes, they won't get everything right. Yes, we called out the winter fuel allowance cut because we don't agree with that either on this side of the chamber, and we'll keep calling out the government when it gets it wrong. But the Tories had the chance. You had 14 years and you messed pretty much everything up by every metric possible. So I don't know how you have the cheek to come after 6 months and lay the blame at the doors of Labour. Mr Mayor, this is a shameless, opportunistic motion, and we will be opposing it. Thank you.
Councillor Morley.
I can't follow that, but I love a little bit of political knockabout. I mean, it brightens the end of your long day on what are we on Wednesday. But Nadeem, I do appreciate what you've said there. I do appreciate apologising for the years of supporting austerity. As you said, you was there on camera. I support it. It's the right thing to do. And after all these years, you apologise for that. So I do appreciate that. Nick, you've spoken at great length there, mentioned everything. You didn't mention the Conservative Party once at all. You spoke the woes of the Labour Party, you didn't mention the Conservative Party. I know it's a little coalition going on here. I'm sure we'll see you with Nigel Farage with a pint in Ossett Precinct in the not too distant future. Maybe have a cigarette in your mouth. I'm the man of the people, we all know that. Tony's up there, he'll be with him. So, Jack is right. Jack is right. After 14 years of the disasters, what happened with the Conservative Party, you blame it on us after a few months. Every single public area is crying out for money. You can't fix it in a matter of a few days, weeks and months. It is going to be painful over the next few years, but we'll get there. But as far as I'm concerned, I have more faith in a Labour government than I ever do in a Conservative or a Reform Conservative alliance that we may see as well.
Councillor Keefe. You, over there, Charles.
Sorry. Oh, thank you. You know, when you said there that we don't necessarily, we all toe the line within Labour Party, though it's not my first visit to the naughty step, this might ensue. But what I'm saying is I do disagree with how they did it with the fuel allowance. I would have done it a different way. But I do also agree that the fuel allowance as a universal credit had to be stopped because there were some people living abroad getting fuel allowance that was wrong. Some people who were using it to say, and I work in their houses, and they told me they were giving it to the grandkids for the Christmas presents. It wasn't being spent on fuel because they didn't need it. Personally, I'd have linked it to the tax system and said, if you've got a pension and you don't pay tax, then you get 300 quid. If you're on a pension and you pay 20% tax, you get 150 quid. And if you're on a pension and you pay top rate of tax, that's getting no. And so therefore it would have been fair. And that's what we expect from this Labour government. But the reason why she did that was because she didn't want to come across internationally as the new Liz Truss, that we were going to give money hand over fist to people. Don't forget that we settled disputes that have made doctors go back to work, that has made train drivers drive trains. We sorted all that out in that 6 months, but no mention of that. Let's pick on all the little bits of faults and various different things that we would have done slightly differently. But at the end of the day, come the end of this Parliament, I know that this country will be a fairer place. And we've got to start somewhere. And we cannot do what the Conservatives did and come in and alter things, not because of just the financial crash that happened, but you did it because it was ideology. That was what you did. That was what austerity was about. That wasn't nothing to do with the financial situation. We're not going to fall into the same trap and have an ideological purge on anybody else. So you will be allowed to stand whatever rosette that you have on your lapel. But at the end of the day, you'll be proved to be wrong.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one thing I'm always mesmerized is how these people in front of me can defend themselves. It's indefendable. What they're trying to say is they have never ever owned any responsibility to anything. Well, our council's reputation in tatters with that £370 million of not insured property, they don't care. But they think that they will never say they've done anything wrong. So Lord Mandelson, learn from him. Today he said he was wrong to say Trump will pose a threat to the world. So when will you guys say anything, at any time say you've done something not as good or something wrong? This is awful. The winter fuel allowance is awful. Please, Councillor Keith said, if we be phased out, that would be better. Give the poor people, the people living in my ward, a bit of an opportunity to say, look, I will want it to have a bit of a time so I can manage my affair. No, no such luck. And they were frozen in their own place, in their own house, and they have to come out to find a warm place. And you are proud of that? So many buyers' remorse I experienced in my property, in my shop, in my business. So 20-odd years of business owner. This year I am really, really scared. Okay, I'd love to have the minimum wage to go up. I'd love to be able to do as much as I can to contribute to my country. But this national insurance number will kill a few businesses, at least on the high street of Wakefield. And you know, you're going to have a bit of better so-called funding, but that will go towards, like Councillor Ahmed said, towards your national insurance contribution. Even the charity could not be exempted. Wakefield Hospital was starving. They were so worried as well for those terrible situation that the clients and patients they meant to look after. So you cannot be proud. I got Labour members come to my shop to telling me, Sam, never Labour again. Labour members say they will never ever vote Labour again. So be scared, be worried about that, okay? So let's talk about, Councillor Keith talking about mean tested. Some pensioners gone to Spain on holiday. Where do we stop from mean test? Are we going to give the TB license to people over 75? Are we going to give people over 68 or 60 years of age a free bus pass? Have they not achieved anything when they paid into the system all their life? So are you going to say to people, you can afford a hip replacement, so please don't come to NHS. You will pay to yourself. So where do we stop? Okay? I want to say this to people. You have nothing to defend. The growth that she's dreaming for is not come from the economic policy that she is exercising at the moment. And we have a worse time to come. Get her sacked, because this is not something we normally discuss in this chamber beyond our paycheck. But the damage she has done to this country already in a short 6 months' time is really dangerous to let her in that number 11 one day longer. So for that reason, I support Councillor Farmer 100%. We need to get her sacked, and then she can go back to a bank to be a customer service, office manager again. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Can I ask members to stop muttering when people are talking? I did come down very hard on this side when they did it. Can we do it on this side, please? Thank you. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to oppose this motion. And, I think me and Councillor Farmer probably joined this council around about the same time, and I'm not sure whether it's second or third political parties have been in. I know today, we're going to take things serious in life about, if we're concerned about the economy of this country, but if we're going to use our council chamber as a pitch to become next reform candidate, and we know what it's all about, and it's opposing, it's in public gallery, but I will say this. There's one thing he's got dead right on his resolution in the council further note, and he's right, and I think we all agree in this room about winter fuel allowance, but it's already been said. It couldn't be sustained in the present system we got, but this Labour government messed it up, and they are paying the price for the mess up at winter fuel allowance, but it couldn't have been sustained. But I'm afraid the rest, I've never seen as much claptrap concentrated into one piece of A4 paper in my life. For the simple reason, I'll tell you this. If you speak to Nick outside Chamber, he's not a Tory. He's a trade unionist. He's an FBU man. He's been a saving firefighter. He's been on strike with Fire Brigade Union. He's marched with Fire Brigade Union. He's lobbied me about issues about what happens in Fire Authority while he's been in this chamber. About who went to work and senior officers that scabbed in last national strike. So when we start making comments about, train drivers and their trade union masters, come on. It's not been wrote by Councillor Farmer that wrote that. He's no more a Conservative than I am. And do you know the reason why it's all about
Councillor
this?
Tully, I've got to interrupt you, I'm sorry. We're debating the motion, not Councillor Farmer's politics.
But the point I'm saying is this. He knows that, and there's nothing in there. We've got a situation where we're trying to put right years of, we can't even deal with as prisons. Talk to people that work in NHS. Talk to people that's looking at people laid hours and hours and hours in corridors because we ain't got enough beds, we ain't got enough space. That's the dilemma that this government have got to pick up and run with. And they ain't got it right. And I'm no big admirer of Rachel Reeves, but I'd sooner have Rachel Reeves any day than Kwasi Kwarteng and some clowns that were taking advantage of this country. And Councillor Farmer knows that, he knows that, and he knows full well this resolution today is nothing about getting Rachel Reeves or asking for Rachel Reeves' sack. It's about his next step on his political cycle and where he wants to finish up at next local elections, and that's what it's all about. Reject the resolution, it's a load of cobblers.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Rowe.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to stand up for this because I have to say this chamber is freezing, but this has made my blood boil. It's made me warm, I'll tell you. You know what? I've been around quite a long time, and I'm proud to have been a Labour Party member and worked for the Labour Party since I was 16 years of age. And I've seen some comings and goings between the Tories and Conservatives. And I've gone back in history and seen what's happened when the Tories have been in power and Labour's had to come in and dig the country out again from what they've done. It's nothing new. Nothing new at all. Just look at your history. And here we are again. Looking at this motion today, I'm just wondering, are you living in a parallel world over there? Because my God, how can you just sit there and call out the issues in this resolution today, and you're actually calling people liars? Now, nobody knew, according to you, she should have done everything to find out that there was a £22 billion black hole. What did she find out 8 days before the election, when the Office of National Statistics, actually, them you're calling liars as well, brought out information that in 8 days, another 8 billion had been added to it, and all of this money that they said they were going to spend, 40 new hospitals, we didn't even get 4. The rest of it absolutely disgraceful in terms of committing to funds for new ideas, new development, new issues that were going to benefit people, and not one of them were funded. Go back and ask the questions there, and you'll have some answers that are fact. Fact. We had expenditure that they've just come about here in this resolution here. One of them mentioned £600 million that they paid out to a company to deliver PPI equipment when we had COVID, and not one of them had a ship. That was good, wasn't it? That was clever. We had the ministers with their friends getting contracts for PPI that was delivered, and it wasn't of the standard that was needed because it wasn't protective, and yet it was paid millions and millions and millions of pounds. That's fact. We have the hospital still on our knees as a result of what this government did. And I worked in that hospital. I was proud to work in it. I'm still proud to be part of it. I'm part of the adult health and social care to look after people. And we have people being waiting on waiting lists years and years and years for hip replacements, knee replacements, operations that were needed. We have everything in terms of the health and well-being that have backlogs of years. We have neurologists, we have every occupation within the health backlogs. And you know what? I never thought in my life I would sit up here and look at the need to actually involve and pay private sector to help people out of pain. And that's what we're having to do. That's fact. Let's go on facts. And you know what? All the issues that came up during the Conservatives' control of 14 years, they're all piled up. And keep listening to your television and your radio because you see them all coming. The haematology issue, the blood issue, everything that they put to one side and didn't do that you should have done. Review upon review upon review. Everything that came up. And there's lots more outside that I could go down, so don't start me on that one. Don't start me on it, because I'll tell you what, I've been here.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp, we've had this conversation before. If you want to... Excuse me, don't tell me to listen. I'm just saying that you shouldn't be heckling, number one. If you wish to raise a comment or ask a question, please do so. Councillor Pickersgill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, there are quite a lot of things in this motion that we could sort of look at and pick apart. One of the things that sort of concerns me is around what's the Conservative offer. Because in a couple of months' time, people start getting, who are pensioners, will start getting the pension, which will actually be an increase that's based on triple lock, that will give people about twice as much as what the winter fuel losses that they actually sustained were. And I've got to contrast that, because we don't know. The Conservative, I mean, I always struggle to work out where the Conservative Party is in the opposition benches, because there's clearly quite a lot of division. But what we're faced with now, a leader of the opposition who's going back to Tufton Street, who's going back to the Liz Truss stuff that caused all the problem, that's talking about getting rid of triple lock, that's talking about means testing pensions. There's a whole...
1 second, Councillor Pickersgill. Mr Councillor Gert.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr Mayor. My understanding is that we should be debating the motion. We've gone off subject for a number of times. For too long. And to be honest, you know, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now. I'm ready for my tea. I'm ready for my cocoa. You know, enough's been said. If we can't stick to the actual motion, can we just move on?
I've only got 2 people down to speak now, so we'll take those 2 and then we'll hopefully be able to move on. Councillor Pickersgill, if you'd like to complete.
Thank you. Yeah, just to say, I think what we're seeing is a lot of desperation from the Conservative Party. They're fighting their internal battles. They're fighting the internal battles on the right in British politics. I think if we're all going to give a score for the new government, it might only be a sort of an 8 out of 10. But I'll take the 8 out of 10 for the Labour government ahead of where the Tories would take us any time.
Thank you, Councillor Pickersgill. Councillor Medford.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll have to use this mic because that one isn't working. Councillor Ahmed, I feel really sad that you feel so let down by your government, by the Conservative government. I feel sad that your MPs stopped responding to you because that is absolutely despicable. But we're different in Labour. We've got a strong Labour team made
Speak to the motion, please, and not having an attack on an individual. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm coming round to it, Mr Mayor.
1 second, point of order.
Number 2, my MP was John Trickett.
Councillor Medford, would you like to continue?
You made the point, Councillor Ahmed, when you were speaking, that you felt that our MPs would stop responding to us. But in Wakefield, in this district, we have 4 brilliant Labour MPs. John Trickett, Yvette Cooper, Jade Bottrell and Simon Lightwood. They work with us as a team. We're not going out on the doorstep for them. They're equally coming out on the doorstep for us. It's a two-way
Councillor Medford, I'm sorry, but
relationship.
you're not speaking to the motion. You're
Right,
making political
I'm
points.
responding to the points that Councillor Ahmed said, Mr Mayor.
Can I ask you just to wind
All
up in
right.
less than 10 seconds,
If I can
please?
just finish then, we're all there as a Labour team for the people of Wakefield, and that's what matters.
Thank you. Any further people wish to speak? Right, 2 more and that's it. So, Councillor Vickers.
Yeah, mine's definitely on the motion, and I just question some figures and where you get your information from. It clearly says in here that 100,000 jobs are expected to go as a result of the national insurance increase. An estimated 20% of the cost of those will be passed on to workers as low pay, and 20% to consumers as higher prices. It says it's estimated. I don't know where you get your figures from, but it's surprising that you haven't put that there won't be a 20% cut in bonuses paid to CEOs, etc., and there won't be a 20% cut to shareholders' dividends either. Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a bit of a mess, this motion. There's a bit of everything in there. I want to start with the pay rises for workers. It's right we give people pay rises, and the reason why the new government, and I'm glad they have had to do a deal, is because the Conservatives let the strikes go on for too long. One of your own Conservative ministers in 2023 admitted that prolonging the strikes cost the economy an extra £1 billion, right? And that ministry even said they could have chosen to settle, but they didn't want strikes spreading to other industries. It was an ideological reason why the government kept those strikes going, right? But there were a lot of the RMT work, a lot of the train drivers and conductors basically didn't take pay rises during COVID on the agreement that later on, when the country was recovering, those pay rises would be paid back. So it's right, the new government sort of agreed them. Having said that, I do actually feel betrayed by this government, and I have no love for it. It's quite clear that we're continuing Conservative austerity. You might mention the winter fuel payments, which I disagreed with what happened there, but you make no mention about the failure to lift the two-child benefit cap, which would lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. You make no mention about the comments coming from the Chancellor now, where we're looking at further cuts to people with disabilities, further cuts to disability benefits. Those people were hounded by the Conservative government, right? And pushing more people into poverty like that is a shame. Should not be happening. I do feel that like this government is betraying the principles I hold dear, the Labour principles I hold dear, and I don't support anything it's doing at the minute. Well, not much of what it's doing. I think it's a lot of residents I speak to feel betrayed as well. But I'm not going to take any lessons from Conservatives from the damage they did to communities like Hemsworth. Thank you.
Councillor Farmer, you have the right to reply if you wish. In exercising your right to reply, may I remind you that you can introduce new matters.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll just be brief. Just for point of clarification, it wasn't £1 million short that from the Labour budget this Wakefield Council loses out. It's £1.5 million. So there is a shortfall there. Yeah, some great comments there, but the issue is, it's now your government. And the two-child benefit, all these issues now are your issues. They're your issues. And I do like you, Stevie, because you do amuse me. But you do sometimes talk, you know, don't you, Stevie? But I do like you, good lad. And the rest of you, you've made your points, fair enough. We all know how it's going. Just like when you all supported it was the removal of the winter fuel allowance, wasn't it? Your government doesn't listen, they don't want you, they don't need you, they're just going to carry on and carry on. So, vote for Rachel Reeves, whatever you want to do. We'll see what's going to happen in the short term, because if the growth doesn't grow or doesn't get better, you've got to do something else. You can't raise taxes, because Rachel said you can't raise taxes, and you won't cut, and you're not going to cut public spending. So you've got a big choice. They've got a big choice now, what they're going to do. She's batted herself into a corner. She's not going to raise working people's taxes, VAT and all those sort of things. What is she going to do? Let's wait and see. I look forward to it. And as long as the people in my ward, Ossett ward, don't lose out, I'm happy with that. And bearing in mind, I do want you to be a success. I honestly do. Because then the people in my ward will benefit from me. I've got doubts. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
With that, are you moving the motion? Pardon? With that, are you moving the motion? We'll now vote on this particular motion. All those in favour of the motion, please show. All those against the motion, please show. Any abstentions? Thank you. We've only got another 10 items on the agenda, don't be worrying. That, colleagues, was the last item on the agenda. Thank you all for your attendance. I now declare the meeting closed.